Peace and love, family. How is everyone doing? Thank you for joining us for another edition of the RAM Book Club, Resurgence of the African Mind, where we seek to liberate one African mind at a time through knowledge. By reading, of course, we are reading Blueprint for Black Power by Amos Wilson. Yes, family, we're rolling through. We are on chapter 11. So last week in chapter 10, we talked about the candidate selection process. And we learned about the selling of the candidates, about the political parties, and the need for a Black political party. This week, in chapter 11, we're talking about ideology and the legitimization of dominance. So we're going to talk about the ideology process, media in the ideology process, the ideological process of African-centered opposition, Black media, white media, and blackface, and the Black bourgeoisie, Black political establishment alliance against African liberation. I am Alima Njai, aka Lili La Poete Speaks, author of Perceptions of a Misplaced African, Volume 1. You can get Perceptions of a Misplaced African, Volume 1, as well as the links to our RAM Book Club every week on my website, www.lililapoetespeaks.com. You can go to the Blueprint for Black Power page, and you can get the link to join the panel family, or you can listen in and join in the active discussion on YouTube. I'm going to let the panel introduce themselves, and thank you for joining us.
Alafia, Bibi Fahode, Hotep. My name is Dr. Deanna Bailey, also known as Dr. Maat. I am the co-founder of Ed Anime Productions and the executive producer of Meltrek, which is an animated series that teaches children African or African-American history from an Afrocentric perspective. You can visit edanimeproductions.com. That's EDANIME Productions with an S.com to purchase your copy of Meltrek. I'm also an adjunct professor over at the School of Engineering. I teach digital communications, wireless communications, and next semester I'll be teaching signal processing for the first time. Thank you for joining us, and I'm looking forward to this discourse on the ideology and the legitimization of dominance. Sis, this is going to be a powerful discourse.
Yes, it is.
And I'm looking forward to it. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic to Sister Camille and then to the brothers.
I got a glare. I'm about to take it.
I'll say to the family, my name is Camille Gaynor Jones. I'm a musician, drummer, producer, and a teacher.
Uh-oh, she froze up. Sis?
Okay. Entitled. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you froze for a minute.
Oh, where did I freeze at?
You said I'm a teacher.
Okay, I'm a drummer, a teacher, producer, band leader. There's many children in the church that I see that are very talented, but their parents don't seem to invest in them as far as drum lessons. They just kind of let them, play in the street. So I think it's a very important, music is a very important aspect of our lives and our intellect. So you should invest in your children. And, if you have a young child that's trying to play drums or interested in drums, please give me look me up and check out those. My website on www.camillegainerjones.com. And you can check out my CD. It's on iTunes, Rhapsody, CD Baby, all the digital outlets, or if you prefer a hard copy, you can also get a hard copy. And I'm really looking forward to this discussion, the ideology and legitimization of dominance. There's a really powerful page about the media, which is my thing. And really looking forward to discussing this with the panel. And I thank you for everyone that has joined.
Yes, brothers. Here they go.
Brothers sis. Are always high now. They
every single week. Brothers.
They shy.
Yes. You know what? I don't even know who that is in the black. Oh, this is Brother Travis.
Right.
It's Brother T that couldn't get on. Dr.
T, you not there?
Oh, I thought Dr. Maat was frozen.
Oh, no, I'm here. I'm here, sis.
Oh, okay. You look like a mannequin.
Like this.
I guess the brother's not going to introduce.
Is it my turn?
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
I didn't know it was my turn. Man. You know,
Yeah, we
I'm
was
being
calling
polite.
on
You know, ladies first. You know what I'm saying?
Go ahead, brother. Introduce yourself.
Black Power. Love and honor to the resurgence of the African mind. Book Club. I love it. Every time I hear that, every time I say it, every time I have to say it, like I say it slow, so the family can understand what's taking place. The resurgence
That's right.
of the African mind. Book Club.
Yes.
Chapter 11. We about to learn how to bankrupt this game on chapter 11 right here. You see what I'm saying? So some folks gonna be committing chapter 11 after this here. I'm Knowledge Born Alive, Blue Knowledge Radio. Y'all can catch me on 8 days a week, live. You know, just had an awesome interview with Sister Alima yesterday. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I had a magnificent interview today with Sister Javon Muhammad. She's the CEO of the Marin Public Health Center, and she's a midwife. She's amazing. I need to look that sister up, and please get her on the platform and interview that sister. She is amazing. She is brilliant. Warrior sister. Been married to her king for 22 years.
Wow.
She has an amazing story, and is truly dedicated to teaching our sisters and brothers and family members and the youth on how to take care of themselves and how to give the best possible care. And she opened up a wing in her center where she's the CEO to give the sisters care, the excellent care that they deserve, regardless if they had money or not. So that's a beautiful system. I just wanted to share that.
Nice.
So y'all can catch me 7 days a week here on Do Now's Radio. Y'all also can catch me every Wednesday. We do the study club for the book Remembering Osir by the chief priest of Neoconservatives. My brother Unc Benu. So every Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 10 p.m. on Saturday, y'all can catch me on Get This Wisdom Live, courtesy of Get This Wisdom Magazine, African Liberation School. We got to have Lee Lafoyte come over there and dr.maat come over there and have some real talk come over there. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, I'm ready. I'm ready when you're ready, brother. You already know.
Always.
Right. So I'm here. I'm excited. Let's get busy. I know y'all gonna have to keep me on a leash with this.
I know we are.
Media.
Brother T.
Hey family, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great, fantastic. I got a poor connection. I'm in my car right now, waiting for my daughter to get off of work. But I had to make sure I made the book club. So I'm glad you sent me a link. Appreciate it, family. Once again, Johnson Tiwolo Toe, hail here in Baltimore. Just glad to be part of the panel. Really looking forward to dissect this chapter. I really enjoyed what I've read so far, so I know we're gonna have a lively discussion. I hope everyone's feeling well.
Yeah, it's feeling great.
Yes.
Awesome.
Did brother Travis fall off?
I think so.
I
think he did, sis.
All right. Well, hopefully he can. Hopefully he'll join us. So hopefully he'll join us. I just want to bring to everyone's attention if we turn to page 37. If we go back to page 37, a blueprint for Black Power. I believe this chapter was called Basis of Power, Organization and Ethnic Resources. At the bottom of page 37, and this conversation goes, he talks about these different things from page 37 to page 38. On page 37, last paragraph, he says that conceiving of societies as multiple overlapping and intersecting power networks gives us the best available entry into the issue of what is ultimately primary or determining in societies, a general account of societies, their culture, and their history, can best be given in terms of their interrelations of what I will call the four sources of social power. So he said the four sources of power are ideological, economic, military, and political relationships. So he created an acronym, IEMP or IEMP. So ideological is one of the sources or bases of power. Then on page 155, he talks about 154, I'm sorry. He talks about, this is in the middle of the page, he quotes from Domhoff, who argues that the ruling class are able to dominate the United States by following four processes. A few weeks ago, we discussed the special interest process. We spent 2 weeks on the policy formation process. I believe this was like the week before last, the week before last, and the week before that. And then last week we discussed, or we finished up the candidate selection process. And this week we will be focusing on the ideology process. So ideology or ideologies are a source of power, according to Dr. Amos Wilson. So let's, Brother Travis, thank you for joining us, brother.
Yay.
Yes, thank you for joining us, brother. Introduce yourself, please.
Fam, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Peace, fam. I'm from Detroit, aka Brother Travis from Detroit, Shimsu Netcher, part of the study group here. Can't wait to get in this chapter 11. I mean, this is a heavy chapter here. I've been looking for this to get into this actual chapter all week. Again, I'm out of Detroit. I'm a IT professional. I don't want to be long, but I want to be strong.
Absolutely.
So again, I'm an IT professional here. I work in cybersecurity. Also, I do Facebook, a lot of Facebook marketing, and also I love to study the comedic sciences. I'm ready to get started.
All right.
All right, Brother Travis. Well, thank you for joining us. Sister Alima, please kick it off. Chapter 11, ideology and
right.
legitimization of dominance. But I just wanted to say this, that I hope that the viewers notice that people said the media. We said, oh, they're going to be talking about the media. The media is one of the strongest forces that controls our ideologies.
That's right.
They utilize the media to shape our opinions, our beliefs, and our attitudes, even to control public discourse. And so, you know, that is a jewel of racism and white supremacy. But let's go ahead, kick it off, Sister Alima.
Yes, indeed. So let's kick it off. In our second chapter, we discussed the number of sources or bases of power: economic resources, authority, class, membership, family, culture, organization, and the like. The ultimate base of power for the other power sources is that of the power of ideas. Ideas are actualized and incarnated in patterns of social attitudes, relations, and organization, in social and physical products, in abilities and inabilities, superordinations and subordinations. Knowledge is idea, the product of ideation, reciprocally interacting with reality. Therefore, if knowledge is power, ideas have power. Ideas can be coercive and compelling. Let's see. Guy asserts, whole societies are shaped by systems of ideas that we frequently refer to as ideologies. He goes on to define an ideology as an integrated system of ideas that provides society and its members with rationalizations for a way of life, guides for evaluating rightness and wrongness, and emotional impulses to action. Oh, that's very true.
That was extremely powerful. Like that first paragraph on page 220. Bless you, Sister Camille. That paragraph was packed with a lot of information. He's saying that the power of the mind, thought, of imagination, of vision. He said the power of symbols, of the word, the power of ideation. I mean, he said are manifested. So ideas to be actual. Oh my gosh. I mean, like that was so deep.
And I thought it was interesting, sis, how how we always hear people say knowledge is power. But in correlation, he throws in there that ideas are power. Because if I have an idea, my idea can be just as powerful as some knowledge. And really, my idea doesn't even have to be factual. It's just my idea.
And that you're able to get it out to the masses.
Facts.
Yes.
And so that makes sense. That makes sense why they try to control our ideas. That why they try to control them and suppress our ideas. You know, especially if our ideas conflict with their agenda.
That's
So
right.
they had to think of an instrument, or they had to develop an instrument that it could create or utilize in order to shape and mold, control, suppress, or repress our idea.
Right.
So that was extremely powerful. I love how he said, knowledge is power, but the powers of ideas. Hey, hold up, I gotta write that down. Hold on,
And he says ideas can be coercive and compelling. Exactly, because I can try to confuse you and conflict you with my ideas, which we see happen all the time.
Yes.
Absolutely. Did you read all the way down, sis? To oh yes, you did, to ideology.
Up to the top.
All right, let's go. Let's move on. I'm ready.
Okay, so for ideology, I'm in the next paragraph. For ideology legitimates power systems, hierarchical structures, and social relations through its provision of rationales and justifications for the exercise of power and the necessity of certain social relationships. Then we go on to the next paragraph here. Number 1, ideologies affect perception. Ideas influence what people see in the world around them. Ideologies frequently describe the character of human beings in society. They help us become aware of certain aspects of society, but often impair our ability to see other aspects. Ideologies may distort and oversimplify in their effort to provide a unified and coherent account of society. Ideologies rationalize and justifies a way of life and hence provide legitimacy for the structure of society. Ideologies provide normative standards to determine rightness and wrongness in the affairs of society, even function as religions, complete with prophets like Marx, scriptures, the Communist Manifesto, saints, Lenin, Stalin, Mayo, visions of utopia, a communist society. Ideologies provide motivation for social and political action. They can convert individuals to a particular social or political movement and arouse them to action. Sounds like ideologies and ideas control lives, huh?
Absolutely. Ideologies, yes, it does. Absolutely. And I had this entire paragraph highlighted.
Yes.
So Baba goes on to say that in the context of this chapter, he said we will speak of ideology in terms of its use by the ruling class or dominant groups to justify the existing social order. In this sense, we will follow Jeffrey Raymond in asserting that when ideas, however unintentional, distort reality in a way that justifies the prevailing distribution of power and wealth, hides society's injustices, and thus secures uncritical allegiance to the existing social order, we have what Marx called ideology. So I thought that statement was very powerful, and I highlighted that. So moving on. On page 222, he says that the fact that this system has not been transformed. So Baba goes into saying how, he's saying that if you look at all of these injustices, he's saying that the fact that this system has not been transformed towards such outcomes implies that despite its gross inequities and inadequacies, a critical mass of the populace must accept the ideology used to rationalize and justify its existence. So Baba's basically saying that we have become, complacent with the way things are. I remember in the previous chapter, he said that we live in a culture of inequalities and we've become complacent with that. Well, why have we become complacent with that? We become complacent with that because we have accepted an ideology that justifies and rationalizes why things are the way they are. And remember, in the previous chapters, Baba Amos Wilson tells us that we live in a culture of individualism, right?
Yes.
And in that culture, he said, and when we buy into that myth of individualism, when people fail, there's poverty, we say, oh, it's on them. They didn't succeed. If someone is wealthy, it's like, oh, they must have done X, Y, and Z to get there. So, with this myth of individualism, they have been able to, I'm using his words, justify and rationalize why things are. So there's no system to blame. It's you to blame, right? For your failures. But we live in a system that creates the issues, that we have in our lives, the poverty, the crime, the violence, and so they'll say, oh, no, that person did it. It's on them. because we live in this culture of individualism. So anyway, here he said that, you know, because there hasn't been, I guess, this outcry or this critical, he says, critical mass of populists, he said we must have accepted an ideology used to rationalize and justify its existence. So he calls that the prevailing ideology. He goes on to say that rich and powerful in this context compose American society have the greatest need for ideology groups or well, and we understand that if you want to indoctrinate the people, send them through the educational school system. You know, as Sister Camille said last week, formal induction, formal indoctrination. All right. So then he goes on to this. I need to read this entire paragraph at the bottom of 222. I thought it was very powerful when he described the have and the have-nots and how the have-nots are very complacent with their condition. He says a simple and persuasive argument can be made for the claim that the rich and powerful in America have an interest in conveying an ideological message to the rest of the nation. The have-nots and the have-littles far outnumber the have-plenties. That's a fact. This means to put it crudely, the have-nots and the have-littles could have more if they decided to take it from the have-plenties. This in turn means that the have-plenties need the cooperation of the have-nots and the have-littles, because the have-plenties are such a small minority that they could never force this cooperation on the have-nots or the have-littles. This cooperation must be voluntary. I remember Baba Amos Wilson in previous chapters said that they'll indoctrinate us with, you know, ideas and concept and make us feel as if it's natural.
Right.
You know,
that's right.
So he said it must be voluntary. For the cooperation to be voluntary, the have-nots and have-littles must believe that it would not be right or reasonable to take away what the have-plenties have. In other words, they must believe that for all of its problems, the present social, political, and economic order, with its disparities of wealth and power and privilege, is about the best that human beings can do. More specifically, the have-nots and have-littles must believe that they are not being exploited by the have-plenties. Now, this seems to me to add up to an extremely plausible argument that ours is a system of a social system that requires for its continued operation a set of beliefs necessary to secure the allegiance of the less well-off majority. These beliefs must be in some considerable degree false, because the distribution of wealth and power in the United States is so evidently arbitrary and unjust. Ergo, the need for an ideology.
That's
all
deep.
Right? Yes, it was.
That's deep.
That was extremely deep, bro.
If you sit down and you think about that, what you just read, I know when you sit down and have a conversation with some brothers, some sisters about some of the social injustices, they believe if you just work hard, if you just go to the right school, if you just, you know, you'll be able to make it. But they don't understand the systematic approach that was set in place to put obstacles in certain things that we must obtain, like jobs, occupation segregation, through housing, by putting up redlining and other things that kept us from gaining some of the social advantages. But if you look at hindsight, you believe that you didn't work hard enough, or you wasn't smart enough, or you didn't go to the right school, not realizing that the elite put things in place in order for a certain group to stay behind. And that is exposed. You know, this is being exposed, and Bobby Wilson was just talking about this.
That's right.
Right.
That's very true.
Yes, it is.
Let's go on, family. The ideology process. The ideology process consists of the numerous methods through which members of the power elite attempt to shape the beliefs, attitudes, and opinions of the underlying population. The ideology process is an adjunct to the other three processes, for they would not be able to function smoothly without at least the resigned acquiescence of a great majority of the population. The ideology process is necessary because public opinion does not naturally and automatically agree with the opinions of the power elite. Without the ideology process, a vague and amorphous public opinion, which often must be cajoled into accepting power elite policies, might turn into a hardened class consciousness that oppose the ruling class viewpoint at every turn. Leaders within the ideology process attempt to build upon and reinforce the underlying principles of the American system. Academically speaking, These underlying principles are called laissez-faire liberalism. The principles emphasize individualism, free enterprise, competition, equality of opportunity, and a minimum of reliance upon governance and carrying out the affairs of society. The principal ideological goals of the ruling white male elite in America and of the white American nation token as a whole are to legitimate and justify their superordinate position in power, generate the evidence which substantiates their claims to power and legitimacy, have their rule and domination appear inevitable and natural, i.e., not the result of deliberate, perhaps malicious intentions on their part, gain the freely given consent of African Americans to subordination to white power, and to continuously reproduce the conditions of African American community dependency and relative powerlessness. So Baba is basically breaking down the ideology process and why it's necessary. And in essence, it's necessary because, like Dr. Maat says earlier, they have to shape the way that we think. Because if they have a society full of free thinkers, you're not going to be able to contain that society. You have to have a society that's more so one note, and then just have your little side of radicals so we can deal with them. We can ignore them because the majority of society, it has the same ideology or the same viewpoints that we have. And that's important in order to maintain power. You got to maintain that ideological system.
And it goes back to the previous chapter of selecting the leadership.
Yes.
You select the leadership that's going to reinforce the white supremacy.
Facts. Facts. So when everyone got so excited that they saw a black face in the office, just believe it's just a black face just to pacify you, because it's just going to be another person to continue on white supremacy, because that's what it is here in America.
Sister Lily, I had a question about Kasim Reed. Go ahead, sister. I'm sorry. I had a sister.
No, I was saying that is what you put. Oh, go ahead, brother.
Oh, I'm sorry, sister. I just had a question about Kasim Reed, that mayor out there in Atlanta. I just saw some information on him. He's working with the white business interests with the gentrification situation in Atlanta. Are you familiar with that?
I heard about it, yes.
Yeah, so I was wondering about him. I thought with that name, he might have had some consciousness about it.
Well, he can't help what he was named. I mean, he seems to be doing a lot of things trying to better the city of Atlanta, and trying to do a lot of things, in my opinion, that are directly beneficial for Black people. I haven't looked fully into him yet, but on the surface, he seems okay. But I would hope that in a place like Atlanta, it seems like he wouldn't have to do a lot of business with white people. But then again, I don't know either. That's just my speculation.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it was a documentary that I think I'm gonna put it on my page. It was talking about I'm not sure if it's a Black area. I think it's called People's Town or something like that in Atlanta, where it was a large percentage of Black homes, and they got flooded in that area. And the people were trying to use eminent domain to move them out of there, and they found out that Kasim Reed was in alliance with white businesses to develop that area and move Blacks out of that area. So it was protests going on with Kasim because of his alignment and helping with this eminent domain in this Black community out there.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'll have to look more into that. I'm not sure how recent that is. You know, I've just been here a year. But I definitely want to look into that, though. That's another reason I didn't vote, because I don't have enough information about these local candidates here to make a decision.
Gotcha. I'm sorry.
Well, I think that anytime they put like use Black faces, it's symbolism.
Exactly.
Because they use them more to lull Black people into sleep, so that you're not really super cautious about.
Exactly.
The Black takes your work for the establishment, and they get their own little gains, but they really be, throwing the Black community under the bus, because that's the only way they're in that position that they're in.
That's right. The illusion of inclusion, like Dr. Umar says.
That is real.
Yeah.
That is real.
So true.
Yes. All right, family. So where we at now? I forgot.
I think we're at the top. I just want to make a point that Dr. Amos Wilson lists the major ideological vehicles in a society. He said the electronic media, print media, educational and socialization institutions processes. And see, and that's why I'm a huge advocate of African-centered education, a huge advocate of African-centered education. Because we have to understand what education does, and I'll probably do a show on that. I don't want to take away from the book club's time, but education is also a vehicle to induce ideologies or embed ideologies or imprint ideologies in the minds of people.
Okay.
And so you have to be, wary and cognizant and of who is educating your child. So I just wanted to throw that out. But we can continue.
That's very true, sis. And speaking of education, it's funny how people like to advocate for Black colleges and so-called Black-owned universities, although we already learned last chapter about the truth with that. But you would think that the ideology that they would be learning would be African-centered, right? But they leave and they come out just as more European than before they went in. So that's very true, what you're saying.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, let's move on, family. Middle of the chapter, middle of the page, excuse me. The sustenance, control, and organization of African-American life by Euro-Americans permit them to significantly shape the perceptions, experiences, capacities, expectations, and interests of African-Americans so that justification for the rules of white power appear credible. I noticed that Baba, he emphasizes that a lot, that their main focus is to pacify you with it. It's to slow feed you with it so that it seems like, okay, this is normal. This is what we should accept. But they couldn't just force feed it down our throats and then they have a revolt on their hands, right? So just like little by little by little by little, generation by generation.
Down,
Slow
chipping away at you.
Exactly, sis. Exactly. We go on, let's see what I got here. I don't got too much on the rest of the page. Anybody else?
Oh, on the rest of the page, I have that I'm at the bottom paragraph where Baba says he's quoting, I guess it's Beetham. He says that the justifications advanced for a given system of power are vindicated by effects generated by the power system itself, but which are not understood as its effects because they appear autonomous or independent of it. I thought about how I was listening to a Dr. Amos Wilson lecture a while ago, and he was saying that this system, creates the problems and then the solutions, right?
Yeah.
And so he's saying that for a given system of power, he said the justifications, they're vindicated by the effects that's generated by the power system. So I thought about like police presence, how this system generates poverty, and we know that poverty breeds crime, right? So then that's the justification. Okay, well, we need police presence, a stronger police presence in this neighborhood because it's impoverished or it's crime ridden. Well, it's crime ridden because of the poverty. Well, how did it become impoverished? Because of discrimination in jobs, no jobs are being given, deindustrialization, all sorts of stuff, single Black families. So that's how it became, impoverished. But we never go to the source of things. We look at the effects. And they try to justify the system of power by the effects that the same system creates. And that's what I thought about when I read this paragraph.
That's very true.
All right, we could be moving on to page 225.
I was going to say they never fixed it in justice and locked everyone up.
That's right.
That's right. Or whatever. It skipped right over the ills and go right to the symptoms of
Facts.
Sister, we lost you. Still there?
underserving the community and underfunding the community.
That's right, Queen. Okay.
So,
brothers, anybody want to take over, brothers? 225. Come on, Brother T.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm in the car, so I get best lighting. The most effective means of disseminating and reproducing ideas in society, and the African American community in particular, is to have the community perceive that dissemination and reproduction as the work of disinterested, unbiased, unmanipulative, liberal yet authoritative white American individual groups or institutions as flowing from sources independent of the marked influence of the powerful. Thus, white America strongly pushes and projects the powerful mythology of independent, liberal American media, universities, and other information processing establishments. That is, America loudly congratulates itself for what is called free press and mass media, which permit the free exchange of ideas. Most Black Americans utilize white media and those factors as their primary, if not sole, source of information. Most are not mindful of the fact that American press and mass media are proudly owned, profit-making, white elite-controlled corporations. The press is one among other institutions and one of the most important in maintaining the hegemony of the corporate class and the capitalist system itself. That's deep.
Yes.
That's why it's very important that there's no African presence or African information education in media.
That's right.
It will control the minds. So
That's right.
that's why they hold it so tight. And these
And
corporations.
if we do have some type of African media, it's always based off of a celebrity BS, reality stars and what they're doing and what's going on in their lives. It's never real media. It's never real news really going on. You gotta go to blogs.
If we go back to,
Go ahead, brother.
go ahead, sis. I'll wait my turn.
Well, I was gonna say that we don't own any media.
That's right.
Right.
There is no such thing as Black radio. They destroyed that back in the 80s and 90s when they, when Bill Clinton let them control and consolidate all the all the stations owned by only billionaires, basically.
Right.
They never let Black people own a station. You could rent it, ever own it. So they just got rid of our voices in the marketplace. Anything anything that's Afrocentric and powerful, and that's why all we have is the tacky and the trashy.
Exactly.
And that's their way of controlling people, not letting us have a voice. You notice only Blacks that's on television are the ones that decimate the same information that basically the controlling majority puts forth. So you don't get any, like back in the day you would see Francis Cress Wilson. They're not gonna put those kind of people on TV to offer a contrasting point of view that could possibly wake up Black people. So they've got like a stranglehold on any real information, and they want to keep people asleep and keep them consumers and just slowly marching to a slow death, really.
That's right.
That's right.
I would like to add a point to Miss Sister Camille's what you just stated. I remember a couple years ago, I don't know if you're familiar with the comedian and business mogul Byron Allen.
Right.
Anybody remember Byron Allen sued Comcast and Verizon, DirecTV, and all the major cable corporations. As we mentioned before, Bill Clinton had a big part in the early 80s and 90s and getting rid of a lot of our radio stations and things like that. Well, Byron Allen in the year
he still got a lawsuit going.
Yeah, he has a couple of lawsuits still going. He paid out his own pocket. And
he's a billionaire. They won't let him have nothing. He can't.
Right.
He can't get it. They won't let him get it.
That's the whole point. He says there's no stations in cable or radio that's owned 100% by Blacks. So he's fighting for that ability for us to have ownership of at least a channel. He says Oprah doesn't own. She owns that.
No, she doesn't.
No, she doesn't. Exactly.
Puffy does not own Revolt.
Right.
Matt Johnson.
Those people are all puppets.
Aspire.
You know, they're just put blackface and you get black people arguing. They doing this and they got that.
Even
like,
with Jay-Z,
no,
everybody keeps
people
bragging
funny.
about Jay-Z and Tidal. He doesn't
Right.
own Tidal
No,
completely. He owns the largest share, but he doesn't own it completely. He has shareholders.
Right. So that's
But I think
all an
we finally-
illusion. That's an illusion. So we have to recognize the illusion, and we have to find some way to say, you know what, we need ownership because we need to tell our story. We need to give out information. We need to teach our children, and we have to have the proper media platform. So I mean, I stand by Mr. Allen for what he's doing. He's spending tens of millions of dollars of his own money saying, hey, we need our voice heard, and we need ownership. So this is one way that we can make sure that education, our business, and everything is being heard across the world by our own voice. You know, so it's important. Media, you see, is real important.
Yeah.
I have a question because you guys mentioned Bill Clinton a few times. What specifically did he do, or what law did he enact or instate? I'm just curious. You said in the
You
90s.
remember later on in the chapter, I think it's in the second chapter we were discussing when we had the chart, and when we saw that a lot of, I think it mentioned there. I wish I can go back. I don't want to hold up, but
Chapter 2?
Well, it was regulation.
Yeah, regulation.
Where you couldn't own, like one or two people could not own the entire media. He did away with those regulations and enabled them. So like now you have like that control the entire, like Viacom and people like that. They've swallowed up all the other like smaller
The monopoly laws. He ended them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. The chapter was about the basis of power.
Wow.
And
Okay.
in 1939, that's when it officially started, and then it went on to the 70s and the 80s, and that's when it also happened in the Clinton administration. We lost a lot of our radio stations, black radio stations, around that time.
That's where the power was. They in black people, they figured out that through the music that was being put, because back then you could just take a song up to the disc jockey and they would play it, or we had our own mom and pops, our own small distribution, and they had the money but they didn't have the talent. So small companies and small record labels that were black owned were making all the money, and so that was their way of destroying, coming in and putting all this money, behind certain artists. That's when you have NWA come out.
Exactly.
Or then the music, you had a variety. That's when the music became more monopolized, and it was just about cursing and bitches and hoes, and because they came in and put their money in and their big distribution and controlled the content and the message.
That's right.
Sister Camille, you gonna write a book on that? You need to write a book on that music industry. You got it.
She's writing it.
You writing it? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to come out.
Yes.
I know it well. I mean, I used to work with Run DMC too. I was a producer.
Nice.
And I remember when people started cursing on records, they were like, I didn't want to curse on records because they were like, how am I play this for my mother? People still,
Exactly.
they thought about what they cared about what their parents and older people thought. They just wasn't gonna be out here. And that was a big thing. They went through a lot, like wanting to start cursing on records, and so that drove a wedge in the business too. The people that want, didn't care. They just found people that they could, use to further destroy black people.
Exactly.
Who were willing to go for the money. And then also what they did was they would put black people that would fight against, like when the politicians would come out or leaders in the community about the imagery and the message. That's when that whole hating thing came out. Y'all hating on them for making money, blah blah blah. A bunch of folks, Russell Simmons. They got all those folks out there to they'll find a black person to counter any type of movement that black people are come up with to remain positive and uplift themselves. So they brought out all those, you know, to that, knowing that, and all this kind of stuff. So, you know, and eventually they won.
That's right.
To figure out a way to put. Trying to put a nigger, you know, so black, that's where all that comes from, instead of nigger, you know.
Right.
Same thing, but that's how they were able to begin to get away with it initially.
Mm-hmm. That's right, Queen.
So we're so backward here where I'm at that we have one radio station that's on from midnight till Sunday at like 9 o'clock when it ends, and it ends with gospel. The gospel starts at 6 a.m. and it ends at 9. Hey, family, it plays start off with old school R&B, like the 60s, 70s, a little bit of 80s, and then it'll go to like the new school, then it'll go to jazz and blues, and a little mix here and there as at 9 till midnight, and then it gets real slow jams. I'm just telling you how this is the area that I'm in right now. And so if anybody, going back to what Sister Camille said, so if anybody comes on of announcements regarding what's going on in the community, like if there's a famous comedian or if there's a church event, they'll have that person come on and speak. But if it's regarding anything pro-Black, it's not happening.
No.
And it's so sad. In order to really tap into like pro-Black movements, we have to do things like we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. You know, right. It's crazy. And so, you know, hence, you know, you got Brother Impu, you know, here, you know, working against this system. It's crazy. But folks are really waking up, you know, because they're getting sick and tired of being sick and tired of just, you know, dealing with the nonsense of just going through this cycle. You know, they're like, wait, there has to be something that, you know, Europeans haven't influenced us on. And I'm like, y'all need to wake up. We are, you know, we are all that. We got more than just this simple surface stuff that they're allowing us to do.
Right.
But I just wanted to tap into what Sister Camille said.
That's right.
All right. All right. I would just want, you know, moving on, because I wanted to mention this point on page 225 as well. He says that they set the issue agenda for the rest of us, choosing what to emphasize and what to ignore or oppress or suppress, in effect organizing our political world for us.
That's right.
He says the media may not always be able to tell us what to think, but they are strikingly successful in telling us what to think about. He said it is enough that they create opinion, visibility, giving legitimacy to certain views and illegitimacy to others. I thought that was very, very profound. And then he goes on to say that the central aim of the ruling class ideology process is to define the domain of discourse. That's right. That is, the corporate elite seeks to define the limits of acceptable ideas and to define what is worth talking about, worth learning, teaching, promoting, writing about. All, of course, the limits of the acceptable, the responsible are set at those points which support and justify the interests of the elite itself. So, you know, not to, you know, give light to any of this. I know you guys heard about Wendy Williams. Like, the talk of the internet right now is Wendy Williams passing out. The talk is Wendy Williams, Tyrese crying. You know, it's like I see it all the time, how they give us, like he said, they shape or they control or they define the domain of discourse. We literally talk about things that they put in front of us, things that they make visible, you know, and then that becomes our dominant discourse, or the topic of or the topic that dominates our discussions, you know. So now that keeps us from talking about African liberation. That keeps us from talking about cleaning up our neighborhoods, instituting businesses, erecting educational institutions for our babies, talking about the food, what they're doing to the food. So they're shaping the domain of discourse, right? And they have us focused on Wendy Williams, Tyrese, who got shot last night, Pookie and them, they still dealing drugs. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Shaping the domain of discourse so that we won't be, so now we won't be talking about these things that we need to talk about. So.
Since I was just listening to a lecture by Sister Ani Marimba Abnin, she was saying that anytime we allow our adversary, our enemy, in war, to define what the war is about, we've lost a war. You feel me? And I think that is so crucial to us when we enter into battles, whatever it may be, intellectual or social, whatever you want to call it, that we, like we're doing today, we're our study groups have been educating ourselves, preparing ourselves, that we come to the front lines knowing, no, you're not going to define, you're not going to tell us what our issues are, and we're not going to listen to these Negropeans or these half-baked ass Negroes who so-called, just because they popular, make a little money, or they so-called famous, speak for the Black community. You know what I'm saying? We know what the real issues are. And it's crazy because our issues are so really disconnected from what we really need. You know what I'm saying? As persons of color, of melanated people, we need to really disconnect from what the European, like you're saying, what Dr. Bobby Wilson was saying, the European agenda for our people. They like to set that because they know if they set it, they can control us. They can keep us in a certain playing field.
I think it comes to, with that in mind, then it would come to a point where we have to be more disciplined.
Yes.
Because if we already know certain things like that, then when certain things like that around or come up, then we shouldn't give it our attention and our energy. But time and time again, we all, and I mean we as in me too, we all do it time and time again. You know what I'm saying? And I'm personally getting to the point where I'm starting to be like those other people who just seem like they can't ever have any fun, because I'm just getting over it. You know what I mean? At this point, because I just see how things like Tyrese or the Wendy Williams thing, how they tear us apart, like so quickly. And the situations don't have anything to do with our personal lives. It has nothing to do with our struggle, something that we can all identify with. That's their personal issues. But the way that they magnify the lives of celebrities here in America, they become induced into our lives and we don't even realize it. It's like we be arguing about some people we don't even give a shit about.
Right.
Like I don't even care about Wendy Williams. And you know how many people I've had like negative connotations back and forth with, and I'm like, I don't even care about this lady. Like, why am I doing this? I don't know this person I'm talking to, and I don't know Wendy. What does that have to do with African liberation? Nothing.
Absolutely.
So we get too easily distracted.
That's right. And I was going to ask you guys, what is Tyrese about? This guy, I've seen him before. What is he all about? I mean,
basically, he's a singer and actor, and he's having some issues going on with his ex, and she's keeping him from his daughter. And so he went out and made a video, and he was crying, and he was really upset, and he was saying that he couldn't see his baby, and that he just wanted to be able to see his daughter, and the charges against him were bogus. And so basically you had a split between people defending him and saying that they had empathy, and between other people who were laughing. Kind of the same situation with Wendy Williams. It's pretty much the same.
So about her husband's infidelity or something. I saw something about she was having some issues with her husband.
I don't know about that. That wasn't really the gist of what's going on.
She passed out. Yeah.
And then like you said, Sister Alima, it's like, their issues become our issues. Now we're at the dinner table talking about what's going on with Wendy and Tyrese. You get what I'm saying? Instead of talking about the issues that we need to be talking about in our own families. Right. I remember my grandmother used to say, sweep around your doorstep before you sweep around. That's right. Don't come sweep around mine. Yeah, don't sweep around mine.
Same thing. Sweep your own front door, honey. Don't come.
And right now we're sweeping around everybody's doorstep with our own.
So I don't follow them at all. That's what I had to ask you guys about. I don't follow them at all.
Now I gotta be transparent, with my Ram book club family. When I saw the video of Tyrese, even when I saw the video of Wendy Williams, I did laugh until I realized the severity of it. I said, okay, Deanna, that's not funny. When I saw that video of Tyrese, I'm sorry, y'all, I laughed. And then the people put up memes and remixes and all sorts of stuff. And, then the comedians started talking. It was a circus.
Crazy.
I didn't see the video.
But see, Wendy Williams, I was reversed because I didn't laugh initially. I didn't know she was okay. So initially it was like, what the fuck wrong with this chick? And then once she came back like 10 minutes later, clowning herself, shit, it was funny at that point because she good.
Right.
But with Tyrese, I can't bring it in me to laugh because I really don't know I can't say that he's faking. So I can't see myself laughing at somebody when it comes to their kids. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he was hurt.
I know. I was wrong,
just like,
sis.
wow, why put it all on the?
It was just the way.
Why put it online? That's what I didn't understand. Why?
Right.
Like,
it was
why
just
online. Why you had to know that you was going to get clowned, Tyrese? Like, you had to.
Yeah, that was. He knew. I think he knew. I think he definitely knew or anticipated the memes, and I think he knew. I thought it was sad, but it was just, since I didn't know whether it was real, I was, I was wrong for laughing. If it was real, forgive me.
No, let's move on, family.
Yeah, let's move on.
All right, 226.
Okay, so it says at the end of 225, the bottom of 225, to a great extent, the elite ideology process essentially involves the reinforcement of long-held orthodox American values, perceptives, practices, and ideals, which the system of power relations has already indirectly shaped to begin with. These factors are the ideological basis of elite power. And then he goes on to say it's a well-known fact that propaganda works best when used to reinforce an already existing notion or to establish a logical or emotional connection between a new idea and a social norm.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
All right. He says it is important to note that many of these pre-existing notions are the products of elite propaganda and conditioning processes, harking back to earlier historical eras, to socialization experiences in early childhood, adolescent, and early adulthood years in the family, educational institutions, again, family. Now you understand why Dr. Maat, I'm telling you, I'm a huge proponent of African-centered education, because I understand that that's where you shape minds. But anyway, educational institutions, peer groups, and to media exposure during these impressionable years as well. That's why my son Jalen, he only gets 30 minutes of TV time per day, Sister Lima, 30 minutes.
Yep,
Other than that, he's engaged in activities that will develop him cognitively. All right. Because these are impressionable years where, everything we watch, everything we see, everything we watch, everything we listen to, we got to know that there's a political and social agenda behind it. So we cannot sit our babies in front of the television an hour a day, 2 hours a day. No, don't sit them in front of the television. You need to be controlling, you need to be controlling, what you subject our babies' minds to. So he says the ideas, attitudes, and response tendencies implanted by those early experiences are often mistakenly identified by their hosts as self-generated. So we think that these are our ideas. We believe that these are our ideas, but a lot of the ideas that we have been planted in our minds by media, by our educational institutions, and our socialization. All right. So at the bottom of 226, he goes on to say, in order to preserve ideological hegemony, dominance, it is only necessary for the ruling group to reinforce dominant values and at the same time prevent, and he has this italicized, prevent the dissemination of opinion that effectively challenges the basic assumptions of the society. Public knowledge of inequality and injustice isn't so damaging as long as those or these perceptions not drawn together into a coherent, opposing ideology. That is very important. Dr. Amos Wilson is saying, hey, it's okay that they're different ideas. It's okay that they exist, right? But we got to make sure that the ruling class is saying we have to ensure that our ideology is dominant and that these opposing ideas, right, do not come together, he said, in a coherent, opposing ideology. So at the top of page 227, it says that the elite ideology process and network is not the be-all and end-all of the ruling class domination. It does not function to eliminate conflict, thereby maintaining the illusion of free ideas or freedom of speech, from leading to an alternative ideology that provides the basis for the anti-corporate, anti-capitalist, or anti-white supremacy social movement. All right.
Gotcha. So they don't want us to organize institutions that's counter institutions that can counter white supremacy.
Exactly.
Capitalism.
Not at all.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Like
So
Don
then
Hoff said, the struggle for power is a continuous one.
it's a continuous one. And I had that underlined, sis, and highlighted. I might post that on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So this is Knowledge Born. Knowledge Born, Allah start us with this
Yes,
section.
start us off, Knowledge
this is,
Born.
this is you right here, Knowledge Born. Media and the ideology process. Are you there, Knowledge Born? Knowledge Born stepped away from the computer. He think he's slick.
Pull it out.
Do the knowledge.
All right, let's go.
Okay, well, I'm gonna move on then. All right, family. Social institution structure. Where are we at? Social institution structure and give meaning to a society's social thoughts, practices, and interactions. They regulate and socialize its members and provide the instrumental means by which the society instructs and polices itself, propagates and reinforces its dominant values, maintains and advances its dominant interests, generates social power, and structures its internal and external power relations. Parenti contends, most American institutions, be they hospitals, museums, universities, businesses, banks, scientific laboratories, or mass media, are owned by a relatively small number of corporate rich. When trying to understand the context and purpose of the media, this pattern of ownership takes on special significance.
We might have to get Michael Parenti's book.
You know what? I keep writing down all these different references of his. I said the same thing. I need some of his work. And Dom Hoff as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dom Hoff. Yeah.
Okay. Do the knowledge. Oh, I thought that was do the knowledge. I thought he crept in. Okay.
I have to be honest, on page 228, when he quotes from Parenti, I had this entire paragraph highlighted. I mean, he goes into who owns the media. Now, granted, this list was comprised in 1986.
Right. So it may be a little different now.
Yeah, it's probably a little different now. So maybe we don't have to read the entire paragraph, but it's an eye-opening.
It is.
As to who specifically owns the mass media in the United States.
It basically just shows us that most of the media in this country is owned by just a handful of conglomerates.
Right.
Right. And that's you wouldn't think so, because it's interesting. It's interesting the way that they play it. So it's like they'll buy up a whole bunch of different media outlets, and they may be counteracting media outlets, but they're still owned by one person. Like I was listening to NPR and RT, the RT channel in Russia, that they don't like that channel, but that channel is owned by like BBC and all the other major media outlets over there. So even though they talk about it and say, oh, don't listen to them, they're right wing and they're blah blah blah, but they still allow them to be there, because number one, they got to give the idea of free press, right? And then it helps to balance out the whole, okay, we're not dominating anything, because you got that side of the media that, it's leftist. And so you can join them too if you want. It's really smart, actually.
And they ain't talking about shit. Excuse me. They ain't talking about nothing. I mean, if you listen to those programs, I mean, they're giving out basic information. It's really nothing that, for persons of color to really grasp hold of and be like, oh, this is motivating. Let me, steer toward this or that. It's just basic, the same stuff across the board.
Exactly.
Absolutely. So then that means we can move on to page 229, or did you guys want to read this list?
No,
I'm pretty sure this needs to be updated. So on page 229, I'm at the top. He says that the mass media and information or communication systems are the major tools for generating, maintaining, and converting individual and public opinions into social power that is used to oppress and exploit. So I often tell my sons, Harvey and Isaiah, I say, honey, you got to watch what you subject your mind to. We wonder why when you're listening to this music nowadays, it's you know, everything is about sex, money, drugs, and murder, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they put us on this frequency because what are they trying to do? Their desire is to oppress and exploit, right? So if I can get you to be a criminal and get you to engage in these different degenerate activities, that'll lead to what? Mass incarceration, poverty, broken families, you know, and the list goes on and on. So, you know, we got to understand that you got to watch what you're watching. You know, it says the mass media and information. So these are the tools. All right. So I had the next paragraph highlighted. The white corporate elite media information establishment uses its control of the mass media to create and reinforce the ideology that transforms interest into a general interest, justifying existing class relations as the only natural and workable ones, the preferred and the optimal, or not perfect, societal arrangement. And then he says that corporate elite owned and controlled media function to create a climate of opinion, to shape social perception by framing the reality and information which basically shapes the formation and expression of opinions. They do this mainly through setting the issue agenda, that is, by controlling the domain of discourse. For example, determining what is worthy of public, I feel like we've read this before, what is worthy of public exposure and discussion. They choose what issues and information are to be emphasized and to be ignored or suppressed. Consequently, did we read
No,
this?
you know, Baba Wilson always, that's why I be telling y'all, you got to pay attention because you'll end up reading the same thing because Baba Wilson overemphasizes.
Yes, he does. So he says that consequently they create visibility and legitimacy for certain persons, groups, and opinions, thereby expose limits on public knowledge, interest, discourse, understanding, behavior, orientation, and capability. So this is all I have highlighted on page 229.
At the bottom, it says, last paragraph, the centrist media is, in a word, more receptive to the right than to the left because its owners and corporate heads share the right's basic feelings about free enterprise, capitalism, communism, labor unions, popular protests, and U.S. global supremacy, even if not always seeing eye to eye with it on specific policies and cultural issues. And he was talking about the media, how, you know, they have like the left media, like they call the leftist and the right wing and then the center. But he's just drawing emphasis that they're all pretty much the same. Yes.
All right, let me see what I have.
30, what he goes on to start talking about radio. I wish Dude of Knowledge would jump in. I don't know where he done went.
I know, because this is his
right here. Right.
This is his area right here.
He's starting to get into radio, and he's just talking about how radio stations that were particularly popular in their hate speech towards blacks were much more heavily listened to, much more popular than you know, more conservative type radio stations. And he goes on to give examples. He talks about Rush Limbaugh. I'm sure everybody's familiar with his racist behind, and talks about just how he was very, very popular and how he sold all these books and made millions of dollars and had millions of people watching him. And most of his things was propaganda. It was, you know, anti-liberal, anti-black type of Reaganite mindset, so to speak. But that's what people enjoyed. And what does it say here? Anti-black propaganda, conservative ideological publications not only help to maintain white supremacist status quo, but to put the icing on the cake are the sources of fabulous wealth, fame, and prestige.
It says, and I just want to bring to the viewers' attention. So he's going into this next subsection, speaking about ideological processes of African-centered opposition. Mm-hmm. And so on page 231, he says to counter the propagandistic white media establishment, the Black Media Information Network must be supported and financed by Black-owned businesses, which in turn must be primarily supported by Black consumers. Mm-hmm. He says the Black press today is not a free or powerful press because it lacks these necessary supporting pillars. The more successful and wealthy the Black media become, meaning the more they are financed by white-owned corporate advertising, the less free and weaker they become. Okay. But the key word here, sis, is that we need an information network.
And see,
a lot of we have platforms you know, when I look on, you know, the YouTube and all of that, we have platforms. I don't even say we have them, because if YouTube wanted to shut down these platforms, they could.
That's right.
You know, but you know, we need a network, not just, oh, so-and-so has a channel that we listen to, so-and-so has a channel, or so-and-so, they have their talk, so-and-so. We need to organize and have a network.
Right. We need a Black YouTube. Exactly.
Absolutely. Right. Absolutely.
I mean, that was one of my visions that I had saw for my blog, that maybe somehow it could turn into like media, because I'm trying to make it as opposed to just a regular blogger just talking about what's on my mind, and actually touch on Black media. And if I could have actually dedicated, like one to two dedicated individuals per state to like give up the updates of what's going on in the Black community in that state and in those areas, like that would be powerful. And I would love to do something like that, but I would need dedicated people. I can't even get people to halfway respond, so I don't even know how to even go about trying to get those people. But I would love that, and be able to report and update, and so we could know what's going on in our communities, because everyone, you know, unless you live there, you're not really going to know.
Right, we don't know. Like you said, we're so detached from one another.
Right.
And we don't, like you said, we don't know. But we need a network, and that was the key word, not just a platform, right? Because it seems like there are a lot of platforms, but we need a network, a Black-owned and operated information network. So Baba goes on to say, if an African-centered liberation movement is to be successful, it must rescue the collective African mind and soul from the clutches of Eurocentric and non-Afrocentric ideology. Such a movement must organize itself for a struggle to the death. He said a struggle to the death against the continuing internalization of self-defeating, self-destructive ideas by African peoples. It must unite these people under ideology of Afrocentrism and inculcate within their breasts a life-saving, life-giving, liberating, African-centered consciousness and identity. It must incite the peoples to new self-knowledge, to the discovery and development of creative, operative strategies, social relations and arrangements, new values and visions with which they will break asunder forever the shackles of white supremacy. These ends can only be attained if Afrocentric movement goes on the ideological offense with an overpowering vengeance.
Wow. I had a friend years ago who just told me this one thing. He says, you will never be free unless you divorce yourself from this marriage of white supremacy. And I never understood. He divorce yourself from everything. And then as Baba Wilson says, you must, you know, put back in you everything that's African.
That's right.
Develop this African mind. That's deep.
Yes, it is. Indeed. All right, where we at? 232?
32.
Yep.
232. All right. Sister Camille?
Yes. Okay, the top of page 232. American program, academic struggles over curricula of inclusion, Afrocentric curricula, and the like would quickly convince us that the ruling cohort mounting a comprehensive campaign against the Afrocentric movement. That this coordinated offensive makes use of every possible weapon in the Eurocentric propaganda armamentarium indicates just how dependent the white power elite is on the indoctrination of the African masses by Eurocentric indoctrination by self-alienating, self-defeating and behavioral orientation.
All right. Lord, Queen.
We lost her.
I'm gone. Am I back? Am I back?
Lord.
Okay. Any Afrocentric ideology which successfully induces African peoples to shed Eurocentric ideologies, attitudes, relations, and orientations will at one and the same time induce them to shed themselves of their subordination to white supremacy. In addition, this revolutionary ideology will empower African peoples to overthrow their European masters and non-European exploiters and to enjoy the bounty of their own labor, lands, resources, and humanity. It is in this light that the ruling white elite and the Eurocentric ideological establishment it controls have seen fit to subject the Afrocentric movement and its ideological arm to an intellectual COINTELPRO. That's crazy.
That was deep.
That made me think about Facebook. Intellectual COINTELPRO and how they making all these fake Facebook pages so they can see what people are thinking.
Yeah, well, Facebook is a race book.
NSA book.
That's exactly what it is.
NSA database.
Yeah. The militant police erected COINTELPRO of the 1960s and 70s decimated African-centered armed resistant groups and radical ideological encampments in the African-American community through outright police murders and executions, malicious espionage, propaganda campaigns, and prosecution, personal character assassination and intimidation. Ideological warfare was also mounted by the ruling elite against the nascent ideology of Black Power and the Black Power movement. So basically, it turns its campaign on you. It turns its propaganda machine on you to ridicule you, murder you, and basically discredit anything that you're trying to do to help your people.
That's right.
And it also goes on.
I just want to interject for a sec, Queen. You know, Sister Alima, when I read this, I gotta be honest, and their names will remain nameless. I thought about all that stuff that happened last year, right? With the, you know, with folks coming into the community, slandering people who are doing work in the community.
That's right.
And so what did they do? They assassinated, you know, my character. They assassinated the character of Brother Ankh. They assassinated the character of Brother Asar. Brother Black Panther, Brother Asar Imhotep. And was there anybody else whose character got assassinated?
Sarasu Setis.
What? He was the one doing that. Brother, I'm about to get you up off this thing.
Y'all got no love for Setis?
We about to get your ass up off this thing.
Right. Yeah, that was the one starting all the trouble.
That was the one, right? I mean, you know, they would, you know, and I see what Bob is saying. He's saying they launched an intellectual COINTELPRO,
right?
You know, where he says they discredit the African ideology. You got folks going out here saying that aliens built the pyramids,
right?
You know, aliens built the pyramids.
We call them Neoconservatives.
Yeah, you got folks saying that, you know, that aliens built the pyramids. You have folks saying that the Medjugorje has never been deciphered. Look at this, discrediting Afrocentric ideology.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Right there, it says undergirding thought and scholarship, assassinating the characters of its proponents.
That's right.
So all of us who are African-centered, yes, they assassinated Dr. Ben. They assassinated Dr. Ben. Oh my gosh, they lied on Dr. Ben. They lied on Ashwa Kwesi. Said he couldn't read the he couldn't read the Medjugorje. And then there's videos out there of Ashwa Kwesi taking trips to Kemet, reading the Medjugorje from the wall. So it's mighty funny. I'm telling you right now, the ancestors speaking right now. I'm telling you, it's mighty funny. He calls this intellectual COINTELPRO, and that's what we dealt with in the community last year. Intellectual COINTELPRO, where people assassinated the character of the proponents of Afrocentrism.
But
that's right.
Dr. Maya, you know that Dr. Ben didn't agree with the decipher of the Medjugorje. You know that, don't you?
He did. Now see, that's why we were having Brother Rujaru. He never, Dr. Ben never said it never said that it wasn't deciphered.
I'll get the video.
You can get the video. You can get the video. He never. They use the same video, Brother Travis. They use. I know exactly which video you're talking about, where he talks about the people of the Nile and how he went down there and talked to them. Dr. Ben never said that it was never deciphered. He said that all of it hasn't been deciphered. But he didn't say that none of it has been deciphered. Not the video that I saw, but show me if you got a video. Show me a video where he specifically says the Medjugorje has not been deciphered.
I'll get it to you.
Not that I don't want nothing. I don't want any implication He implied this. I want a direct statement from Dr. Ben saying the
I'll give it
metadata
to
has
you.
never been deciphered.
I'll give it to
Because
you.
from the videos that they were using,
Mhm.
from the videos that I saw, they were trying to take his words and say, oh, he implied
Right.
that the metadata has not been deciphered. But
Even if he
didn't-
did say it, I mean, no disrespect to the elder, but he called himself a Jew too. So just
And he
because he's
was.
an ancestor or elder don't mean we have to agree. So
That's right. And he
Right.
was.
did. I respectfully agreed to disagree.
Right,
True.
and he was he was from
Right.
Ethiopia, baby Israel. But I agree with, like you're saying, the scholarship can always be, you can have two sides
upgraded.
and still have an African-centered concept.
Great, maybe what we previously thought
Yes.
10 years ago, 20 years ago. Today, you have other scholars who become behind those scholars and they update the information. That's why we always say that information is forever changing.
Right.
Like
Right.
Obenga
So a
has a
scholar
strong understanding. I agree.
Absolutely.
So
I
at the
agree.
bottom of the page, going into more of these coon and coonettes, a relatively new wrinkle in the ruling elite strategy involves the invention and employment in vastly increased numbers of a species of Africans referred to as neoconservatives. These academic Uncle Toms and Thomasinas who occupy chairs, right, in prestigious white elite institutions are the war dogs of the establishment whose purpose is to accomplish ends of elite propaganda discussed above, to prevent among African American peoples the dissemination of an Afrocentric ideology that effectively challenges the basic assumptions which justify and undergird white supremacy, and to thwart the coalescence of an African-centered consciousness and identity among African peoples through the generation of ideological confusion, fragmentation, and contradiction.
Mm.
Woo.
Mm. Mm.
Check
Yeah.
check this out, family. I have this book by Jomo Kenyatta, and it's called Facing Mount Kenya. In this book, he talks about the Ginkayu tribe in Kenya and how the missionaries, the European missionaries, went into the Ginkayu tribe, excuse me for mispronouncing it, in Kenya, and they were looking at the initiation, the white missionaries were looking at the initiation rites. This is going to tie into what we're talking about, of the girls, the young girls and the young boys. And the young boys, the part of the initiation process in the relationship and developing relationship and talking about sexuality, developing sexuality tendencies, et cetera, with the initiates, they are made to lay in bed with a young boy is made to lay in bed with a young girl. Okay. Now, when I say made to, I'm just saying that's just part of the process. They're coached on how to. Now, when the white missionaries came and they saw this practice being done, they immediately began to say that this is of the devil and this is not right. How are y'all doing this to these young girls? And so the country that had Kenya under lock, I don't know if it was Britain or France or whoever else who had colonized a particular country, began to go into Kenya and say that this was wrong. But those who were indigenous were like, wait a minute, this is our initiation rites. How dare y'all come into here and say that this is wrong? Okay, how is this relevant to what we're talking about today? The same thing is going on today, that everything that we have put in play, okay, that we deem is necessary for our community, is still going on. These white folks come in our communities, or they come into, our situations and try to say, you know what, this is not right. Mm-hmm. But we know, from our African point of view, African mindset or perspective, as Baba Wilson is saying, that this is what we feel is important or know is important from our point of view. But since time began, always, when we open the door, they try to come in and give their perspective on things and call it evil. Some of us that are weak-minded and jellybacks, we fall prey to their foolishness and adopt their traditions. It has nothing to do with us. And we just need to stand up and be like, the hell with y'all. This is how it is for us.
That's right.
Exactly.
be a time we didn't used to listen to them. Like, you know,
That's
like
right.
now it's like
You a
just,
killer when they came in with that BS.
yeah, it's like now it's just like
And,
for Negroes all day. I'm like, what?
Mm-hmm.
and look, y'all, I want to just, I looked in the chat room and I saw brother Sean P, brother Inni Harit, I always mess his name up, Kafani. This brother said that Dr. Ben said that the Medjugorje has not, he said spoken, he said that it can't be spoken. He never denied it hasn't been deciphered. Thank you so much, brother Sean P.
Exactly.
So Dr. Ben said it can't be spoken, but he never denied it hasn't been deciphered. He said spoken, not deciphered. He said it hasn't. He said, so brother Travis is incorrect. And I remember brother Sean P is 100% correct.
No, it's not.
That's what it was. It was, brother Travis. I'm telling you.
I'm gonna get that video and I'm gonna send you the link tonight.
Okay, Dr. Ben and brother Sean P. Yeah, send it to me.
Send it to me too.
Brother Dr. Ben said it wasn't spoken, but he never denied it being deciphered. Never denied it being deciphered. But okay, send me that. Send me the video.
Okay.
So we can send it out. So yeah, so Dr. Amos Wilson, he goes on to talk about neoconservatives. And he refers to them as academic Uncle Toms and Thomasina.
You know that name. That's an old country name, Thomasina.
Thomasina. So he's saying that a lot of these Uncle Toms and Thomasinas are sitting in, they have these positions in the African studies departments. And he's saying on page 223, he said these academias as heads of African studies and related departments will use their position to indoctrinate further African-American teachers, professors, and intellectuals, in addition to students pursuing their other vocations with ideologies compatible with white supremacy. All right. So he's saying that these black neocons, he said that they even write white propaganda in black face.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So he said to a measurable degree, the pressure to remove outstanding Afrocentric chairs in African studies is already moving apace. He says a number of these chairs have been replaced by academic Toms. He said, and many African studies departments have been restricted in their scope and squeezed dry of life as a result. We got to understand, and we got to, it is true. And we got to understand why, because, a lot of these universities, they pumped out people like, Booker T. Washington.
Exactly.
Right?
Martin Luther King.
So they said Martin Luther King. So they said, wait a minute,
right.
we got to put some neoconservatives in these African studies departments to ensure that these ideas and concepts that are being taught, this information doesn't oppose, racism and white supremacy, So moving on. Did anyone want to add anything else before we go on to the
viciously is your brother Asante at Temple University. He's under a vicious attack to try to, because he created the first African Studies PhD.
Right.
At Temple. So he's under vicious attack right now by them Europeans.
What? They're trying to get rid of the program?
They're trying to get rid of the program, limited amount of courses that they offer.
Wow.
Trying to kill the program slowly but surely. Yes, at Temple University.
Typical.
Wow. All right. So let's move.
Afrocentric Ideology Network.
Let's go, sis.
All right. So it says the absence of an effective Afrocentric ideology network, which influences the popular as well as the academic mind. Such a network would include not only academic publications, but more crucially, the mass media, popular books, magazines, newspapers, radio and television programs, community education, and training seminars and rallies. While there has been a manifold increase in the paper and electronic media in the African American community, and a corresponding emphasis in the media on African culture and Black identity, Black programming, and Black-centered writing and perspectives, this must not be construed, to mean that Black-controlled media are fully supportive of Afrocentrism. One can safely describe the popular Black-controlled and oriented media, dependent as it is on white ruling elite licensing in large essays, as essentially integrationist, assimilationist,
yes,
and accommodationist in orientation. As a media, They are tied to and promote Americanism as much as white media, even when they permit a harmless amount of Black radical political dialogue. And that's very true. Of course, we all know that's very true of Black television shows and radio programs and stuff like that. You know, they don't want to offend
Right.
the white audience who could possibly be listening. So they have to be very neutral in their approaches on their platforms. And of course, if the white man is paying you, I mean, you can't get up there and say F the white man, you know.
Absolutely.
Unless you don't want that check.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, so you know that's also a game in essence that brothers and sisters kind of have to play right here in America. I'm just waiting for one to just have some balls and just get on stage on air one day and just go ham on white supremacy. You know, just like fuck this job and just really go in. Like I would love that.
What happened to? I remember it was a radio disc jockey that used to also help a lot of events and also help a lot of rallies. He was taking off Michael Bazin.
Oh yeah.
Michael Bazin was taking off when he was helping. He was every show he would talk about social events, and then they used to take him off the air.
Wow.
Off the air, out of mind. Every time anything happened, from Michael Brown down to any issue that happened in any city, he would go there, or he would broadcast about it, and he would hold protests. And I tell you, he said, brothers and sisters, they taking me off the air, and they replaced him with somebody who was more liked.
Is that the brother from California?
Michael Bazin. I don't know where he was stationed
Are
from.
you talking about Michael Bazin, or are you talking about someone who was on his show?
Michael Bazin.
I don't like Michael Bazin.
You know, Michael Bazin had some. I know, and a lot of people did not like some of his views, but you have to admit he did talk about social issues, and that's one of the reasons when he started speaking more about social issues. That's one of the reasons I believe he was taken off.
Because I mean, he's on the air now.
Is he still talking about social issues?
No. Nah, that nigga said, I need my check.
They made him.
Yeah, they shut him down now. He don't talk about much, but really relationships, and he promotes a lot of Black business. He does do that, but he doesn't really talk about a lot of social issues.
I guess he realized that don't pay the bread and butter. That's not the bread and butter.
Exactly. Yeah, I gotta play the game, I guess.
Wow.
I guess. I don't know what happened to Knowledge Boy. He just disappeared, huh, Queen?
He sure did. He kept saying, oh, this is my topic. You guys are going to be talking about Black media. Right, you guys are going to be talking about Black media, so I'm going to be in the building. And he came on, introduced himself, mute the mic, and he got out of there.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to Black media. Did you guys want to add anything to this section before we close out?
No.
Before we move on to them?
One thing about Black media. Are we going to Black media now, you say?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to Black media, white media, and blackface.
All right, my bad. Keep going. I'm sorry.
I immediately thought of BET.
You and me both.
When I read this, I was like,
right.
wow, you know.
Because all the references that Baba gave are kind of old. Nobody really, I don't even know if anybody really still reads Ebony and Jet. Is Jet still around?
Yeah, they're still around, but I don't
know. Okay, I think they're dying. Like no one really reads those anymore.
Go ahead, Brother Travis.
Is Emerge still around? Did I think that magazine, whatever happened to Emerge?
I haven't seen that since the 90s.
Yeah.
Wow. It's in the 90s.
These are, you know, these media productions, like you said, Ebony, Emerge, Black Interface,
Black Enterprise.
Yes, all these other ones that they name, Upscale. As we know, they're old. They're a little bit older, but still, the way in which they operate, you know, Black media operate, it's still the same.
Right. You're right.
Absolutely.
A lot of funding was taken away from them as well. That was brought up. A lot of them shut down, like Jet, because a lot of media dollars stopped pumping until that demographics.
Wow.
So these magazines could not survive without money from the Department of Defense,
right?
And others big media platforms. So they start to go. They couldn't survive just off of subscribers.
Wow. Wow. And that's why now I understand why Dr. Amos Wilson said that we have to start our own platforms that we fund.
That's right.
That we fully fund. So he goes on to say that he said these platforms feature Black oriented formats. He said they have in large measure been victimized by their very success. For such success, depending on white elite financing and underwritten by white elite advertising revenues, has made successful Black media extremely sensitive to Afrocentric ideology. He said, and even circumspect about radical chic. Black-oriented ideology, i.e., ideology emphasizing Black identity and culture, that is a bit critical of Eurocentrism, a bit left of center in its social and economic value orientations, but still within acceptable white liberal conversational domains. On a whole, the Black media are essentially a parochial establishment lacking vision and courage, craving white media acceptance and recognition, specializing in racial ego massage, commiseration, complaints, and victimization. They are of relatively low educational value, that's a fact, and provide little worthwhile leadership for the African American community. They are dark imitations of their white counterparts, which set their reactionary agendas, news stories, editorials, and features.
Facts.
Wow. Yeah. So that's all I have for page 230.
This just a wannabe white conglomerate. They want to be whites, and so they do everything the white media does. BET tried so hard to be MTV, it wasn't even funny.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, well, right after Bob Johnson sold it, that's when it, once
all about is just straight MTV, and put all those.
I like Bev Smith though. I did like her.
Who?
Remember Beverly Smith that was on BET? Bev?
She bought it after Bob, the Black lady.
Yeah.
She still. I thought that was his. I ain't gonna get into that one, but
might have been.
She fell into it.
You silly.
All right, so I'm on page 223 at the top where.
Why you keep saying 223? We on 235.
235. My bad. I'm looking at 235. Baba Amos Wilson quotes from E. Franklin Frazier. He says in his book, Black Bourgeoisie, which was published in 1962. But even though it was published in 1962, a lot of what he says is still very relevant. All right, I'm not going to read the entire paragraph, but what he's saying here is that the Black media, that it represents essentially the interest and outlook of the Black bourgeoisie. All right. At the end, he says, is exaggerations concerning the economic well-being and cultural achievements of Negroes, its emphasis upon Negro society, all tend to create a world of make-believe into which the Black bourgeois can escape from its inferiority and consequences in American society. All right.
That's a powerful book by him too, though. I had this book a long time ago.
What, the Black Bourgeoisie?
Yeah, I read this many years ago.
I need to get it.
In the 1990s, I read this one. This is a powerful book.
I got it on PDF. I haven't read it.
Does anyone want to add anything else to page 235?
I just had the Negro press is not concerned with principle or values except where status in a narrow sense is concerned. The Negro press is not concerned with broader social economic values, and we all know that. They've never been focused on what's actually going on in the world.
Hey, let me highlight that. I didn't highlight that. Absolutely.
We go on to talk more about, he starts talking about Ebony Magazine, and he was saying that the editorials, I thought this was interesting here at the top. He said the editorials of Ebony Magazine regarding the civil rights struggle of the late 50s and 60s were outstanding. Their emphasis on the historical and contemporary achievements of African Americans served to enhance Black self-esteem and encourage continuing struggle against American apartheid. I remember saying that to my godmom. She keeps like all of her magazines and everything, and she had like magazines from like the 60s and 70s. And I remember reading some of those Jet issues and stuff like that. And I remember asking her, where are all the stories about the struggle?
Right.
Like, if these are black magazines in the heart of the Jim Crow era and race inequality, and all they were talking about was celebrities and the Jet Beauty of the Week and how to have a nice massage, and it was just confusing to me. And now that I'm older and putting it into perspective, and I get it now. I get why there were none of those stories in there. And then there might have been one or two, but they were so pacified and watered down that you would swear a white woman wrote it. So
Right.
I just thought that was interesting that they said that they made sure to uplift people's achievements so that it could seem as if we are actually making some progress, when in actuality we were right in the middle of apartheid.
Wow. Right. They use that to mask the deprivation in the community.
Correct.
Lerone Bennett, who wrote for them many years, was a great historian, but he didn't put that power into Ebony magazine. You know, Black Power USA is a classic book that even Dr. Amos Wilson quotes quite a bit in his lectures by Lerone Bennett. But he was an editor for Ebony for many, many years, but you didn't see a lot of, he didn't, like you said, he became a little bourgeois himself, and, he wrote into that type of element. His book, Black Power USA, is a good read.
Black Power USA. Write this down. Where are we, family? Okay, so middle of the page, 236. Ideological thrust of Black print media was primarily assimilationist and integrationist in character. A little further down the page, the Black bourgeoisie press and expanding electronic media establishment, while still serving as the watchdogs for Black bourgeoisie interests and speaking for Black community interests, increasingly follows the party line of the liberal white American media establishment. The African American media establishment, in essential ways, more closely fits Fraser's characteristics of it today than in the late 50s and early 60s, when his media critiques were first published.
All right, and then I have highlighted at the bottom, sis. It says, apparently frightened of provoking the disapproval of their national and multinational advertisers and of raising the area of white-ruled establishment on whose favor they depend for survival, these medias assiduously concern themselves with reporting the activities of Black celebrities. Oh my gosh, I mean, it says of the Black bourgeois, and with selling the products of white-owned manufacturers to Black customers.
What they did.
The Black media literally delivers the Black market to white merchants, right?
Yes.
I mean, all of this is like everything we see from our radio stations to our television stations. This is exactly what goes on. It's about celebrity gossip, what's going on with them. And then they advertise a bunch of white-owned manufacturers to Black customers. It says that the Black media literally delivers the Black market to white merchants. They're raising, I don't know what that is, the Atra, I don't know what that is. The Black print media, especially the popular magazines, which increasingly projects the fashionable lives of Blacks who have made it in white society. So there go your Jay-Z's and your Beyoncé's, are little more than fashion and consumer magazines. Their stock and trade is now fundamentally the same as white mass publications, celebrity features, male-female relations, career choices and opportunities, exercise and fitness features, self-help, and pop psychology features. Controversial issues superficially treated when dealt with at rare instances and are carefully and inoffensively balanced. They are careful not to take any editorial position which can be interpreted as Black nationalistic or Afrocentric in orientation. That's a fact.
It seems like the formula is the same, right? The formula has not changed since then. It's like
not at all.
We see that every time an issue happens, we look to our entertainers and our athletes. Now, and we ask our entertainers and our sport athletes to bring awareness to the issue. But as Barbara Wilson said early in the chapter in ideology, there's no way that policy formation can happen if you ask an entertainer and ask your athlete. You know, these things, no public policy can change by those two people. But they're the ones that we continue to push, to continue to see in the forefront to speak about issues.
Well, they do that on that's done on purpose. You know, like we're like the only group of people that when it comes to politics, they go get a musician or athlete
Exactly.
talk about it, instead of somebody that actually is an economist or
right.
We need someone
who can write a policy, public policy to change, or bring some social change. We don't need a entertainer or athlete alone. So
right. You don't need them at all. You need somebody that's
everyone should use their platform. I'm glad some of them use their platform, but we need the other parts as well to help move it along.
Mm-hmm. I was upset how they brought Killer Mike to the Shrine of the Black Madonna, which I come out of, and he talked. You know, people were talking about revolution, and I thought that his views of revolution was very minuscule. He started talking about, you know, do you grow your own food? Do you know how to shoot a gun? And all these particular issues. What we really just needed, what we're talking about right now, is people beginning to organize, beginning to lay out an agenda. Nobody was talking about going out there shooting white people. We were just the agenda was basically to begin to organize. We see that the system, we cannot integrate into the system, so let's begin to create some type of infrastructure for ourselves. He went into this litany about, you know, can you grow your own food? Can you shoot a gun? And all this particular stuff. I think that they go out and get these rappers strategically who kind of divert what real struggle was about. I think that they do it strategically.
That's the point. Because they can't put someone in front of you who's actually going to feed you the knowledge and information that you need to actually try to do something.
Right.
They don't want us to actually do something. That's why they pacify us. And it's easy to pacify Black people. You just put one of their favorite celebrities in front of them, like they said, get Beyonce, and then she'll calm them down. You know, just let her do her thing, let her sing or whatever. Because they figure that all we want to be is entertained anyway. They figure we're not really interested in politics. Only reason we were really interested in politics as of recent was because there was a quote unquote Black president.
Mm-hmm. And what qualifies them as a leader? Because they can rap.
Exactly.
Right. Exactly.
Or because you somehow made a large amount of money. All that means is that you're good at what you do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But at the bottom of page 237, Barbara Amos Wilson says that the Black media establishment is highly reactionary. Highly reactionary. And we are. We absolutely are as a people. But our media outlets, our Black media outlets are reactionary. You know, something will happen, and they will we will talk about the issue, you know, of whatever happened, but it's never proactive. Right. You know, like, you know, this is what we need to do. These are the solutions. But we will react. Yes. So Dr. Amos Wilson says that the Black media establishment is highly reactionary. Its agenda is generally set by the white media ruling class elite. So he's already said that. He says, once a Black person has evoked the full notice and approval or disapproval of the white media and ruling establishment, the Black media establishment compellingly presents him or her to the public. All right, so he's been talking about this, like Sister Alima said. He's getting, you know, he's very repetitive with visibility and invisibility.
What page are we on, sister?
All right, 237. So at the bottom, he says that the Black media in its reactionary fashion seconds the motions of the white media in excluding unpopular, anti-white supremacy, anti-Eurocentric, anti-capitalist, and other radical ideological approaches that may provide possible, promising, pragmatic solutions to problems faced by the Black community. They thereby help to deny the Black community innovative and creative alternatives to the failed yet socially accepted approaches advocated by the general media, including the Black and white media. In this sense, the Black media enters into complicity. I repeat, he says, in this sense, the Black media enters into complicity with the white media against African liberation from white supremacy. So Baba Amos Wilson is saying, look, you know, they're very reactionary and they don't offer any pragmatic solutions, he says, to the problems in our community, right? So he said, in a sense, they are complicit in, you know, white media against, he said, African liberation from white supremacy. So they're complicit in the continuing of racism and white supremacy because they offer no solutions or nothing to counter racism and white supremacy. So it says when an expert, and this is what you guys were just talking about with the athletes, and you says when an expert opinion is sought by the Black media regarding problems facing the Black community, he said, for example, Black on Black violence, drug abuse, economic deprivation, etc. This establishment with its penchant for recognizing as expert only those Blacks so designated by the white media and educational establishments or celebrities such as movie directors, actors, comedians, or other erstwhile Black entertainment or media personality will publish the sayings or writings of these experts, regardless of the fact that they generally express opinions of no real substance or relevance. This is what you were just saying, Brother Travis, about Killer Mike, right? It says that they generally express opinions of no real substance or relevance, or more often than not, express regressive and outdated approaches to problems. Like, you know, when I remember when Trump first got in office, Ray Lewis and Jim Brown went to go sit down with him to talk about Black problems. Like
help Lord.
Like Ray Lewis, you know what I mean? Ray Lewis, Jim
Help
Brown,
Lord.
Kanye West went. Who else went? To talk about Black problems. They didn't sit down with a Dr. Boyce Watkins to talk about Black problems. They didn't sit down with Dr. Claude Anderson to talk about Black problems. They didn't sit down without African scholars and historians to talk about Black problems. They sat down with Ray goddamn Lewis to discuss Black issues, right? All right, so Black issues. So anyway, I don't have anything else on this page. Do you guys have anything else on page 238?
No, Queen.
All right, let's move on to page 239. Does anyone have anything for page 239?
Yeah, we got into the Black broadcast media. It says the Black broadcast media is a major culprit in mesmerizing the African American community, particularly its youth, with stupefying, mind-numbing retrograde music and DJ claptrack. I thought it was interesting that he called it claptrack because we call it trap music now. Here it is,
right
later. And he said music created and recorded by the lowest elements of its street culture and sold and distributed by white-owned, Japanese-owned record companies who have shown nothing but the nastiest contempt for the peoples whose music is the principal source of their fabulous wealth and power. Black electronic media feed the mind-destroying, self-defeating addiction Blacks have for music, whether rap, jazz, hip-hop, or gospel. Black bourgeoisie political nostrums and palliatives, hokey cliches, and hopelessly wrong-headed prescriptions for Black social and economic advancement and liberation. And that just sums up the music of today. And this is back in the 90s, but the music of today is the same way. It's that same low frequency, negative, thriving on negative culture and uplifting all the bad things in our community. And that's what we call entertainment. That's what we call music. It's been the same since the 90s and it's the same now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm up here highlighting the head. Absolutely. So then he goes on to say, he said 99%, I'm at the bottom of page 239, moving on to page 240. 99% of the books, so even the books, so that was the music. He addressed the music. Now he's moving into books. He says 99%, right, of the books reviewed are by Black authors. So let me see. Prior to even getting into this, he's talking about Black Enterprise, Ebony, and like Sister Alima said, Baba Amos Wilson wrote this book, and well, actually, it was published in 1998, transitioned in 95. And so, this was in the early 90s and published in the late 1990s. But so he says he's mentioning these different magazines, and he's saying that 99% of the books reviewed are by the Black authors, published by white-owned presses. Thus, not only is the white-owned book industry peddled by the Black press, but the rather innocuous books edited according to the needs and standards of white supremacy, books specializing in victimology, self-pity, self-aggrandizing, autobiographies, and inflating biographies of people who were or are famous because they achieved the condescending approval or reactionary disapproval of whites, books advocating solutions to Black problems, which have long ago been demonstrated to be complete failures. He says harmful even, or routinely recommended to a gullible Black public. So down to even the books, Amos Wilson is saying that they control the books. So even though it's written by, now I wouldn't say that this is, today we have more, like a lot of people are self-publishers. I believe you self-published your book, right, Sister Alima?
Yes.
Yeah, and Black Panther, he self-published his book. I self-published my book. Assault Emotep self-published his book. But so I guess today, I'm not gonna say that that all of our books, published by Black authors or created by Black authors or published by white-owned presses.
The popular ones.
But I believe, right, the popular ones, the ones that actually get out there are.
Right.
The ones that get out there are. So I don't have anything else for page 240. Well, I have something at the bottom of the next section. So do you guys have anything left to say before we cover this last section? We have 5 more pages left. Nothing else, sis?
Nope, let's roll.
Okay, so the Black bourgeoisie, Black political establishment alliance against African liberation. So I have at the bottom highlighted the ideological struggle for African power will therefore involve ideological struggle against not only the white media establishment, but also the Black media establishment. The latter establishment must be subverted by various means into serving the power interests of the African community, or its political and ideological voice and clout must be muted by a more vigorous, relevant, and practical African-centered media ideological process. Whatever pressure the Black liberation movement can bring to bear against the Black media establishment in order to reach the masses of African Americans must be applied.
That's right.
All right. So then at the bottom, he continues on. He says that the Black media political establishment alliance can best seen in its almost uncritical and very adulatory support for Black politicians. Here we go. He says the Black media lionizes Black incumbents without critical examinations. Now, this goes back to what Brother Travis was talking about in the beginning, where he was, criticizing Black leadership. So it's saying that the Black media lionizes Black incumbents without critical examination of their records and supports Black candidates for political office essentially on the basis of their Blackness. Now, we did that with Obama.
That's right.
We didn't question his agenda. We didn't question anything. All we saw, all we heard, and the media pumped this up. The first Black president. He's the first Black president. And all we heard was first Black president, and the poll lines, the lines for the polls were wrapped around the corner.
But the key is what you about to read is that long as they're not Republicans. Now, if he was Black and he was a Republican, Black people wouldn't have voted for him.
That's right.
No, not at all. Not at all. It says generally, as long as they are not Republicans, the Black press makes little or no demands on Black politicians, while it constantly parades them before the Black community as role models, regardless of their success or lack of it in advancing the interests of the community.
Right.
The achievements of Black politics. And you know what? I think about that in Baltimore, and Brother T, I think he's gone. But there was a politician, not Kirk Smoke. Oh my gosh, it's a politician, and people just voted. I know I voted for him. We voted for him. Yeah, Elijah Cummings. Please Google his name, Elijah Cummings, right here in Baltimore. Yes, Elijah Cummings. Year after year, you had Black folks voting for Elijah Cummings. My mother would tell me, we got to vote for Elijah Cummings. We got to keep Elijah Cummings in office. But, I don't know what Elijah Cummings did for the people of Baltimore. And I'm not saying that he hasn't solved any problems for the people of Baltimore. But, whatever problems he may have solved has not changed our communities very much. But that goes to show, it says that the achievements of the Black politicians, no matter how dubious, are often presented by the Black press as vicarious achievements of the Black community as a whole. Black incumbents are given ready access to Black media outlets to massage the Black community, to maintain their public persona, and to rationalize their very frequent failures to provide the Black community with responsive and effective political leadership. Thus, they keep their opposition out of the media limelight, and the community is cajoled into re-electing a political establishment whose accomplishments are meager when not plainly regressive. And I feel like that about Elijah Cummings, you know, and we are cajoled into re-electing that same political establishment that is not advancing us or, you know, solving our problems.
Like Obama, what did he do for us? And we went back and voted for him once again for a second term.
And he implemented AFRICOM, that's in Africa, put up police, a state, military presence in Africa. That was Obama. But
that was Obama. He has been the president who single-handedly has put the most military presidents in Africa.
That's right. That's right. And also, Sister Dr. Maat, you were right about Republicans. Remember, they tried to push Allen Keys on Black people, but Black people didn't go for that. You were right, Dr. Maat.
Baba Amos Wilson was right.
Yeah.
But that's a fact. But that's a fact. He was, so that they weren't taking that. But you know what's crazy? Prior to the Great Depression or the Depression, you know, Black people were Republicans. Remember?
That's right. Because
exactly, we were heavy Republicans. Exactly.
Because of Lincoln and freeing of the slaves.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had a different agenda back then.
Right. Right. They just want to get free.
All right.
Well, get off the job. Not necessarily get free, but get off that job. Free labor, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Off that plantation.
All right, so let's keep on moving, Sister Alima. Did you have anything else on this one? I have something actually highlighted down the bottom.
241, right?
No, we're on 242, and I thought that this was very powerful because you and I have had a conversation about this, you know, during, I think you and I were talking about this probably last November. But it says at the bottom of page 242, and I have this highlighted, the Black media is ever quick to remind the Black electorate of the historical struggles necessary to achieve their right to vote. Yes. Oh my goodness, how many times have you ever heard someone tell you, someone died for you, someone died for you to vote. You should vote because someone died for you to vote. Yes. So he says that the media is ever quick to remind, the Black media is ever quick to remind the Black electorate of the historical struggles necessary to achieve their right to vote. It indicts the community for its electoral apathy and seeks to invoke guilt feelings in those who do not participate in the electoral process, making such ritualistic participation emblematic of democracy and first-class citizenship. This is the special interest when it is realized that very few, if any, of the major political, economic, and social goals achieved by Black America, including the Voting Rights Act, were accomplished through Black voting prowess. The ballot box has been relatively, he says, impotent weapon, right? Weapon in the achievement of major victories by the Black community, right? So he goes on to say that boycotts and sit-ins, and he was saying that these things were, you know, effective in meeting our political, economic, and social goals. Not voting in a ballot box, right? But the media will make you feel guilty if you don't go out here and participate in the electoral process, all right? So Baba Amos Wilson calls that a political fraud, right? At the top of page 243. You know, he says the mystery of the Black media establishment's complicity with this type of political fraud. And he says that the political fraud is the electing of politicians to a bankrupt political system dominated by the ruling corporate elite, whose values and aims are inimical to the cause of Black liberation. And I thought that at the bottom of page 243, I thought that was a powerful statement when he says an economically powerless people are almost invariably a political powerless people as well.
That's right.
That's powerful.
Because you can't put your money where your vote goes.
Yes, exactly.
That's what
you have no
changes. It's in the money.
Right.
Absolutely. And if you don't have any money, like you said, Sister Lima, we can't buy a politician or buy a candidate if we don't have any money.
That's right.
So an economical powerless people, he said, are invariably a political powerless people as well. Did you guys want to add anything else?
So really, I mean,
No.
it doesn't really matter who runs the system. It's like on automatic remote control. It's still going to hold the interests of white people.
Exactly.
Exactly. They're just two wings of the same bird. It's the same thing.
That's right.
Right. Same cycle.
I like that. Two wings of the same bird.
Yes.
Yeah. 243. I wanted to read second paragraph. The realization that the Black owners of major Black media outlets have been financed by white advertisers have gained access to their media properties through special dispensations, provisos, set-asides, and affirmative action programs promulgated by the two political parties, especially the Democratic.
Let me get Sister Camille a hotspot. This you need some of this.
Oh, why you clapping? Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Am I back?
we can hear you.
Oh shit. All right, let me see. Where was I? The realization that the holding of political office or high appointed positions in government and the private sector on the part of a large and influential segment of the Black bourgeoisie, that their social standing in the Black community was achieved and is maintained by their ties to the Democratic Party and the American electoral system, make it obvious as to why this Black social class seeks to convince the larger Black community that voting is the end all and be all of Black liberation. Consequently, the Black community is spared a true, realistic, and thorough education as to how the American political system really works by the Black media establishment. It is not informed as to how the system is subverted by the white corporate elite, as to how the process of governance is almost unrelated to the electoral process and electing of politicians, as to how an economically powerless people are almost invariably a politically powerless people. Woo. Yeah, I thought the most powerful thing that like when Black people didn't run out and vote for Hillary, I thought that was very powerful because they were banking on our vote to put her in office.
Oh yeah.
That showed that's got them scrambling now to try to get Black people back on board. But that was the most powerful thing we could have done.
So when they said Black people didn't go and vote, because I didn't pay attention to it, sis. We didn't go out and vote.
They said
Right.
particularly Black men.
Oh, I'm about to say because Black women damn sure went out and voted for Hillary.
Yeah, I sure didn't. I was like, I won't be voting for Miss Ann. No. I know who you are. I was like, gotta be joking. I just went for the whole,
Hillary was a closet Republican herself anyway.
Yeah, her and her husband.
Definitely.
Yeah, man, they locked all those Black people up. You kidding me?
And look, and all the stuff they doing down there in Haiti is just a mess.
Yeah, man, stole all that money.
What y'all think about the Jeremiah Wright situation with Obama?
Well, they was gonna try to dig something up on him, and that, to see if he was a radical or a Muslim or, that's what they were going for. But he stopped going to that church. That said volumes to me that he stopped attending.
I think that if he would have stood, that just shows, going back to what Bubba Wilson was saying, that just goes to show you how going for or feeding into the white supremacy, because there's no way they were going to have even a mulatto president, let alone a Black president, submitting himself to Black authority or Black authority figure. They was like, So when they began to dig, they was like, oh no, we're going to find anything that we can. Because the brother, whether you Christian or whatever, however you feel about it, is preaching still, I believe. And it was like, oh no, we can't have this. Because if Obama is going to be president and he gets a hold and begins to feel the messages that the brother was preaching, white America was in trouble. But
That's right.
So that says a lot about his his character to me. own, so to speak. You know, and that's sickening. I was really disappointed in that.
That's a lot.
He don't come from no system.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
You come from a white woman.
So did he?
And he was dating white, and
Did he
he was
use-
dating white women up until he became a
Right. I
politician.
really feel like the only reason he got with Michelle was for his career, because
Right.
black people wasn't going to accept him if he came strolling up in there with a snow bunny.
And white
Right,
people
so-
wouldn't have,
White
wouldn't have
people
accepted.
wouldn't have either. They would have been uncomfortable as hell.
Also, he
Right.
would have got the black vote in Chicago if he wasn't with that pastor.
Mm-hmm.
Him as well.
He had proposed to this white woman like twice, but she turned him down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when
But you know what? Brother told you, hey, Brother T just says, you said he wouldn't have got the black vote.
Yeah,
That's powerful right there.
I don't.
See, that's
Right, he
the
wouldn't
thinking from Dr. Wilson. We do find ourselves
Pastor.
with brother
So
strong
in
brother.
order to get that black vote, and also to get the blacks on his side. Remember, he had to create this blackness.
Right.
Because he didn't have it. He didn't have it. He wasn't raised with a black woman. He wasn't raised with his father.
And a lot of people don't know that.
And as soon as he got in, he threw him to the side.
Right.
That's what one of his half brothers came out and said, that they just used them. He just used them. And he came out exactly. Once he got elected, he just threw them aside. He just detached.
I mean, just like when he was running and he was talking about he believed in same-sex marriage and this, that, and the third. And then as soon as he get in office, he's full-fledged doing everything for the homosexuals.
Right.
Yeah, he said that he didn't believe in it, right?
No, he said he did. He believed in that you should be married to just a man and a woman, but then all of a sudden he seemed like he switched his whole MO as soon as he got in office.
Right.
Once he got in office, he changed his MO.
Once they cut him a check, he changed his MO.
Right. Once
That's
said,
right.
check this out, brother.
Just think about Obama's whole image. When he first came into the White House, he brought the whole black family.
That's
He
right.
even brought Mama. He brought Michelle's mama to the White House.
That's right.
So that gave an image of a wholesome black family.
That's right.
And as soon as he got in, Mama left. I haven't seen Mama since.
Wow.
Yeah, he got rid of her brothers and her brother and everybody else that was talking on CNN.
If you really study mulattoes, historically they've done this to us for years.
Yes,
You can look at the situation with Haiti and the Dominican Republic even to this day. You know, they've always played that role with us when we until they get to a point where they can break away from us and I think they can get a higher position with white people.
Exactly.
And they turned on Dessalines also viciously.
Yes,
during the Haitian
oh,
Revolution.
yeah. They had a whole army down there, mulatto army.
That's right.
Yeah, I just watched that 1804. Terry Nasheed's DVD. That's crazy information in there, man.
I can't wait. I'm gonna go in and snag.
Order that right now. I've been pulling that up. Now, you just confirmed. I need to go ahead and get that. Get ready to order that right now.
Yeah, there was I forgot there was one French general that chopped the mulatto class. He invited her because he didn't like the mulattoes either, or Africans. So he invited all the mulatto women to a party, and then after he got them all drunk and whatnot, he took them in this room and gave them a box, gave them all these boxes, and inside the boxes were the heads of their husbands, of their white husbands.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember hearing that about that. I do.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's when the mulattoes joined in with the Africans.
Oh,
You know, with the blacks, because he was getting ready to chop off their heads.
Yeah, because they realized they was niggas too.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. We coming over. We made a mistake.
Right. I don't know how y'all personal situations is, but I can honestly say this, even on this air here, that every person that I dealt with that was half and half.
I agree.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying? Can I just put that out there? I mean,
That's real.
It's real though.
It was like,
think about it and put it in a context of reality. It's a wishy-washy place to be in. It's a confusing place to be in. Who do I belong to? What side do I choose? If I choose my white side, I'm against my black side. If I choose my black side, I'm against. It's confusing. That's why people, it's really important that you should stick to your own freaking race and your own culture, because then you produce a bunch of confused ass children.
And that's why they're promoting it like on TV, because they know that interracial relations are confused.
Exactly, and it's going to help to break down. It will help to break down the African American family, because
You're absolutely right.
Families, it's not going to be just black families anymore.
Because 9 times out of 10, those children will have white ideology.
That's right. I saw on PBS, and they had an estimation that by 2050, they had a picture of a girl and a guy, and by 2050, they're saying that that's how most of the people in America would look like, but they look like mulattoes.
Yeah, I agree. That's crazy. Sad.
Because of all of the.
And my ex was a mulatto, and we got in a lot of heated discussions when it came to like Farrakhan and things like that. She was always middle of the road. You know what I mean? But when it came to serious black issues, she would, she'd get real defensive because, her father was white, and so you're right about that. They can't commit to one side. You're absolutely correct.
No. Yeah, they can't.
Absolutely correct.
I mean, Kaepernick is like a rarity. I mean, there are those, but
yeah.
And be careful. You gotta watch that. I'm just saying, be careful.
He was raised with a white family, so I'm watching him with the side eye.
That's right. And that mother and father came out against him too. Did you see that?
Yeah, they did come out against him. I don't trust that mulatto.
Well, that's probably why he knows better than anybody, having been raised by them.
Right, that's right. Hey, Sister Lily is no joke.
It was a white guy that motivated him to do what he did. As far as like taking a knee. I don't know if y'all heard about that. There was a white dude that put it in his ear that was playing on the team with him. And the white dude didn't even take the knee. He left Kaepernick out there. Yes.
Wow.
Just hit me that a couple weeks ago. I was like, man. So, going back to a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about, chat. We were saying Barbara Wilson was talking about meetings before the meetings, or dang, I lost my train of thought. But how they have stuff set up already before they bring it out to the public. Believe that. They had that strategically set up for this man to as a distraction.
Well, family, let's go ahead and finish these last 2 pages, family. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. All right. To page 244. Page 244, I got, to a good extent, the popularity of Afrocentrism and Black nationalism at this time in the Black community attests to the effectiveness of the Black nationalist Afrocentric ideological thrust. The effectiveness of the ideological tactics of the Afrocentric movement is also attested to by the overreaction and vigorous ideological counterattacks and preemptive strikes of the white media, white academic and political establishments. However, the ideological struggle by the Afrocentric movement is far from one. It is currently at near deadlock with its white establishment opponents and their 5th column Black neocon lackeys. This means that the Afrocentric campaign must increase in its intensity and scope. Such an increase in follows. And then there's a list that Barbara Wilson gives. And I was actually pleasantly surprised, family, because a lot of the things in the list I see going on today.
We're doing it.
Right.
Let's go, sis.
So I was let's go through it. Okay,
so
everybody grab one, okay? I'm gonna do the first one. Exposure of Afrocentric ideas through a broad range of publications regarding all important subject matter areas, e.g. political science, history, culture, anthropology, the social sciences, mathematics and science, literature, economics and economic development, military strategy and tactics, propaganda and ideological warfare, espionage, etc.
Taking advantage of every opportunity offered by the media to spread Afrocentric ideology.
Developing and widely distributing Afrocentric books, pamphlets, booklets, articles, records, tapes, CDs, newsletters, journals, clothing items, and symbolic adornments.
Sponsorship of Afrocentric community seminars, festivals, cultural events, training sessions, developmental projects.
Establishment of Afrocentric rehab centers, recreational programs, educational programs in schools, Seeing to it that the chairs of Black Studies programs are filled by Afrocentric scholars, push for the establishment of all male training programs in schools and Afrocentric curricula throughout the early childhood, primary, secondary, and higher education institutions.
Challenges to neocon and bourgeois ideological publications and public utterances.
Development of a prosperous Afrocentric economic business and financial network, spearheading capture of the internal markets of the Black community, as well as penetrating those of aliens and whites. Development of a full-fledged import-export business network across the African diaspora, as well as with other trading partners.
Oh, go ahead, brother.
Establishment of independent political party.
And read the last one, brother. You might as well.
Okay, establishment of a nation within a nation. That's correct.
Yeah, and he says that all of this implies that the Black nationalist press must challenge the Black bourgeois media relative to their duplicity, powerlessness, and lack of imagination. It must accelerate its organization and clout and seek to overthrow what little influence the bourgeois Black media has in the Black community, as well as counter that of the more dominant white media. That was powerful.
Yes.
And as you stated, Sister Alima, a lot of us are already doing it. You got African-centered schools. You have you have the books being published. I know that the Armor Squad, I love that flyer that says we're booked. And it has all of the books that were published by the Armor Squad members. But it says we're booked. So you have brothers and sisters that are producing books. You have brothers and sisters who are producing films. You have brothers and sisters who are, as he said down here, school programs. You got the Ohuhu. I know that Marcus Klein he has a school in Chicago. I believe he also has one in Atlanta. And he has another school somewhere. So you got Marcus Klein, and then here in Baltimore, you have PLM. They have a school here called the Watoto Development Center. And then there's like another Afrocentric school here. So we have these things. We have these seminars, we have these lectures. So a lot of the stuff that Baba Amos Wilson suggested in this campaign to increase the intensity and scope of Afrocentrism, we are in fact doing it. So I was actually proud, Sister Alima,
Me too.
when I read this list and he's saying this is what we need to do. And he's saying this in 1995 or before he transitioned. And in 2017, we're doing most of what he suggested. So we're actualizing his ideas and thoughts. And so I was quite proud of us as a people when I read this list. But next Sunday we will be discussing chapter 12, the economic order and power. Now this chapter is almost 50 pages. It starts on page 246.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it ends on page 295. So it's, 295 or something like that. I know it's like 50 pages. Yeah, so we're going to split this up next week, 25 and 25. Okay, so we're going to spend 2 weeks on the chapter, the economic order and power. Before we go, and I see we have 13 viewers. Thanks for hanging. I saw the numbers fluctuating, 18, 17, 12, 10, but we have 13. Don't roll. We're getting ready to close up in 5 minutes. We just want to give you guys some powerful information. Dropped off already. They said, oh, they done. Click. Got out of there. Got out of there. We just want to give you we want to leave you with some information before you depart. Sister Alima, tell the 12 folks who are watching where they can find your book.
Powerful 12, what's going on? You can go to LiliLaPoeteSpeaks.com. I'm about to try to share this screen with you, family. You give me a second. Is this the right one? I always hang the wrong one, sis. Okay, wait. Is it working, sis?
So I clicked out. I went to the chat room. No, I don't see. Yes, let me put it on your. There we go.
Okay. All right. So you can go to the page, family. Remember, this is where the links are going to be to join the panel or to just listen in the discussion. You can go to the RAM Book Club, and then you'll go down to Blueprint for Black Power. And when you get to Blueprint for Black Power, if you need to be updated, family, you can update yourself on the chapters, and you scroll down to the corresponding chapter that you need to find. Click active discussion link if you want to be in the YouTube chat, or you can click join the panel to join us on the Google Hangouts. You can also go to the blog, family, subscribe to the blog, subscribe to the newsletter, come through, read some things, read about the new African-American poetry series that I have here. Some good information here, family. Also, you can come and check out the marketplace if you like. You can learn a little bit about me if you would like. And you can also, like I said, don't forget to subscribe, family. And my name is Salima Njai, aka Lily La Poete Speaks, author of Perceptions of a Misplaced African, Volume 1. If you would like to get that, you can get it from my marketplace here at lilylapoetespeaks.com. Have a good night, and thank you for joining us.
All right, peace and power, family. Let me share my screen with you all. And I got a message for you, brother Travis, by Brother Sean P. Please look in the chat room. He put up a bunch of links for you to check out. Remember, you were saying that Dr. Ben said that the metadata has never been deciphered. He put up some links for you to check out. So go into the chat room. He said in the chat room, he said, tell that brother I said not to waste his time. He said, because I looked at all of Dr. Ben's videos. He said that Dr. Ben has never said that it wasn't deciphered, that it, it wasn't spoken, And so he said that he put
That's a little strange, though.
Yeah, he said he put
something can be spoken, but you cannot decipher it. You can decipher it, but you can't speak it. That's a little strange.
Well, the dialect is like.
It's the dialect is what he's saying. He's saying that they can't verify how to properly speak it because it's an ancient language. No one speaks it anymore. He never said that you can translate it though. That's just like I can learn French, but that doesn't mean that I can properly speak it.
I'm gonna get that video, and then it's gonna be a humbling experience. Do I believe that you can decipher Medjanetta? Me personally, of studying Obinga's work, studying doing some studying on my own. I personally agree that it can be translated. That's me personally. The statement is that did Dr. Ben believe that?
Right.
That's where we're at.
Right.
He does. You have to read these two books right here. He does talk about it.
Now, I have both of those, but he's not translating Medjanetta in there.
Okay.
And Dr. Ben never used Kemetic terms. Dr. Ben don't use Kemetic terms in neither one of those books. Dr. Ben never used, he uses the term Egypt, and he uses the Greek terms, interchangeably. He doesn't use Harm Akhet when he talks about the Sphinx. He uses the Greek terms. Now, Dr. Ben, he doesn't use those.
He does, bro. He talks about Akabulon, and he talks about Kemet. He does, but anyway, this is not the platform. We'll continue.
Yeah, we'll continue. Yeah, we definitely
we'll pull those out. And like I said, I got Black Men Now, and I have that one as well.
Well, go to the Blueprint for Black Power thread on my page, and let's talk about it.
And we'll paste that, and I'll paste that link of the video of Dr. Ben stating that it hasn't been translated.
Okay, but hold on. But in the meantime, while I'm talking about Meltrek, go into the chat room, grab those links that Brother Sean P put up, and check it out. And as Sister Alima said, we will continue this discourse at lilylapoetespeaks.com. But moving on, please support the Meltrek Project. Visit edanimeproductions.com. We have a store there. You can go here and purchase films and books for your children. All right. Right now we have Meltrek episode 1 and 2 available. Meltrek is a hip hop animated series that teaches children, African history from an African perspective. The objective of Meltrek episode 1, Exploring Ancient Africa, is to teach children that our history does not begin with chattel slavery, but that it begins with humanity and civilization. So we take a group of children back in time to explore pre-diaspora Africa, and they learn, that we did have, great Black kings and queens, and that, we developed mathematics and science, and that we built the pyramids, and that Africa, is a continent that is rich in resources. The objective of Meltrek episode 2 is to teach children about the Aboriginal people of the Americans. So we take this group of people back in time, to learn about the Olmecs, Mayans, Aztecs, Incas, mound builders. Our goal here is to teach our babies that that there were people here, natives here, way before the arrival of Christopher Columbus. That he did not discover a damn thing There
Right.
were people already here in the Americas. We also talk about the African presence in the Americas prior to Christopher Columbus. No, we're not claiming to be the Mayans, Aztecs, Olmecs, or Incans, saying that there were folks over here well before the slave trade. Now, we're not saying they were over here in abundance, but we're saying that there was an African presence here, and we namely the people, Abu Bakr or Bubukari, who came over around 1312. The Malian scholars, claim that he landed somewhere in Brazil. So we teach the children about that. And we also teach them about the shipping nuances in Africa. So you learn about, the papyrus ship that's found in the pyramid of Khufu. We learned about the Dafuna canoe, which is the oldest canoe in the world. So these are the sorts of things that they learn in Meltrek episodes. We have a book that's getting ready to drop in 2 weeks that actually goes into more detail than Meltrek episode 1. We talk about Hatshepsut and all of the different rulers in detail. We mentioned Thutmose, and we didn't mention him in Meltrek episode 1. We talk about Thutmose. We talk about Ramses or Ramesses II. So we go into a little bit more detail in the Meltrek episode 1 storybook. So let me play the Meltrek episode 1. Now I'm just going to play the infomercial for you. 2 minutes, and then I'll pass the mic.
Sister Lima, I got your poetic book. I can't wait to break it open. Get
Hey,
into it.
hey, you talking about a commercial plan, brother?
I didn't know it started. My bad.
We can't
I'm
hear it.
driving.
You guys can't hear it?
No.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
All right, let me just keep playing it. Hopefully somebody else can hear it. Hold on.
There you go.
Children will learn about the geography, its schools, culture, instruction,
Hi, my name is Anna Bailey Scrivener, an educator in the Baltimore City Public School System for over 35 years. And I am excited about Meltrek, and I do recommend it. Hello, I am Dr. Cynthia Neverdine Morton, a former professor of history at Coppin State University in Baltimore, Maryland. And I highly recommend Meltrek as an informative, engaging, and innovative way for youngsters to learn about their history.
Hi, my name is Sharnette. I'm an educator with over 15 years of experience, and I recommend Meltrek.
So give your child the greatest gift of all, knowledge. Just our online shop at edanimateproductions.com to purchase your copy of Meltrek Episode 1, available on DVD. Also available at our online shop, the Meltrek soundtrack for digital download only. Like us on Facebook, follow us also on Instagram and Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube at Ed Animated Productions to stay connected with us always. So join the adventure as we all recall that we all come from greatness, so we can be great.
Meltrek, 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 take it back, let's take it back. We'll talk about the Meltrek.
All right. So please support the Meltrek project. I mean, if only you all knew what Disney has in store for your child. I think they're getting ready to launch some sort of transsexual, transgender, interracial animation. They're getting ready to launch that. They already have a lot of, things going on Disney that are inappropriate. Nasty jokes, inappropriate jokes for children, vulgar language. I mean, we talk about, we complain about these sorts of things, but we don't support the solutions. And so, please support the Meltrek project. Visit edanimateproductions.com. We won't be able to continue this project without the patronage of our people. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic to you, Sister Camille. Let the folks know where to find you and how to support you.
Yes. Hi, family. I'm Camille Gaynor-Jones. I'm a musician, a drummer by trade, producer, and also a teacher and lecturer. You can get my latest CD, A Girl from Queens, at www.CamilleGainerJones.com. Also, my instructional DVD, The Adventures of Drumette, young drummers in your home and that need some tutelage. Got all the latest stuff on here, including some lessons on sight reading. You know, some of the newest licks that's happening as far as in R&B and fusion music and in jazz. So they can bring up their skills, their drumming skills. And you can find me on Facebook, Real Drumette. And like I said, www.CamilleGainerJones.com. It's a pleasure to be here with the Ram Book Club, building with everyone every week. And appreciate and love everyone. Ashe.
Ashe. Ashe, sister.
Okay, go ahead. As above, so below. As without, so within. Impu Haru here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, brother.
Okay. All right, good. We have a platform here called Empowering Us, a comedic study group. And right now, well, we're going to switch gears. We were studying the work of Ancestor Chancellor Williams, Destruction of Black Civilization. Sister Camille, we thank you for coming on and throwing some knowledge at us. And this past Wednesday, I appreciate you. But we're going to switch gears. We're about to do a passage for our shorties from 10 to 18. A book by Nathan Hare and Julia Hare called Bringing the Black Boy to Manhood. This is our endeavor in doing this. So, you know, we need your energy. Please, positive energy, send it our way. There's a lot of single mothers reaching out to us and wanted us to mentor their sons. So we got a lot of brothers that's coming on board to help mentor these young men. We can be reached at on Facebook, Impu Haru, EMPUHRU. Email is empru@gmail.com. Be with the resurgence of the African mind. And definitely that is going on in this book club. Peace.
Peace.
Do the knowledge. Do the knowledge left, Brother T. Brother Travis. If not, we're gonna wrap it on up. All right, family, we're gonna wrap it on up then. Dr. Maat. I know I'm about to wrap it up.
Let me let me put my camera on. I just want to wish everyone a productive week. That's it. And just say Hotep. And that's all I have for tonight.
I want to wish everyone the same. Have a great week. Peace and love to you all.
Family.
Peace.
Peace, everyone.